Drink it in, man.
Deep left side carry on. Picks on the block. At the 5. At the 2. At the 1 to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Drink it in, man.
Get up, Stafford throws. It is end zone. Caught! Oh, baby, what a catch! Kenny Galladay, you're a freak! What a catch! Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Cornbread! I love the Lions! Say it with me! I love the Lions!
Drink it in, man.
Detroit Koolaid. Detroit Koolaid drinkers, as Grifka would say, welcome to the Detroit Koolaid, everybody. Here on a Friday, we are here talking Lions, serving up that Kool-Aid. Going to be a good show. Going to be a fun show. Everybody, the one and only Grifka in the building. Oh, baby. Grifka, how are you?
Oh, it's the new year, so I'm waiting for Derek to do his drop. That was the Happy New Year because you do it so much better than me. But, it's been, it's nice to see the year change. Hopefully everything's going to get better. Stuff will get back to normal. And you can go out to see people again, hang out with your friends. But in the meantime, everybody stay safe and, Happy New Year. And thank God it's Friday.
Which is what?
TGIF.
What is this Happy New Year that I have? I don't have a Happy New Year drop.
You always used to, who was the Detroit sports writer whenever you would see him?
Yeah, that's
past him, you'd always be like, happy.
That's Wojo, man. That's not a drop. That's a real person. And it's something like this. Happy New Year. Woo. That's how you would do it every time. Only you would do it in like July. And so I saw him at that tailgate, and instead of saying like, hey, that's Wojo, or hey, Mr. Wojorowski, how you doing? I said, Happy New Year, woo! And he said, Happy New Year, woo!
That's right. He gave you a wave.
No, I think he gave me Happy New Year back, didn't he? I mean, that's all the guy says. He's like one of those
yeah, he did.
toys.
He gave you a wave. He acknowledged it.
Yeah, I mean,
Nothing
it's legendary in
Detroit. When you do that.
Wojo's one of my favorite guys because like he's that old funny sports writer that I don't know that he has any kids or married. He does all this funny stuff off the air too, but he's just like I don't know. He just like that guy that like either never grew up or just enjoys life and doesn't have to go with the same old. Like I always like that about him, and he's just like your funny uncle that you always hang out with because they just tell funny stories and do goofy stuff, even though they're like, what's Wojo? Probably like 55, 65 years old, something like that. But he's still funny, so
yeah.
A good dude. But yeah, man, like I said,
yeah.
we had a fun show on Wednesday. We talked about we barely talked about Tampa Bay because there wasn't anything to talk about. 47-7, absolute embarrassment. Then I got on a big old hot take rant about Matt Stafford's toughness or lack thereof, and the fact that guy gets unconditional love here, some warranted, but a lot of it just blind faith, in my opinion, that needs to be curtailed a little bit. I mean, come on, people. Like, this guy ain't bringing us any Lombardi trophies. You're acting like he deserves a key to the city just because he's a good guy, tough guy, and he's helped out Detroit a little bit. I mean, come on, man. We want W's. We want Super Bowls. Then we talked about the Lions roster, which was crazy, naming off people we never heard of that's going to be working at your local bowling alley next week. And then, we got into, like, the GMs, the coaches, the new team, new everything. Here we are on a Friday, Grifka. Talking Lions, heading into the final game of just this abomination of a season again. What the heck we talking about here on a Friday? Don't get me upset, please.
I don't think so. It's a new year, so I'm going to try to keep it calm for you. I guess my first question is, like, you just recovered what we talked about, but thinking back, it's been kind of a strange football season, all around. And, we came into the year with a lot of hope. We're like, this is going to be the year. Pat's got his guys in place. We talked about the signings, how they were going to mesh well with his defense. The offense was really going to click. But how do you think overall this year is going to be remembered? Do you think it's going to be the footnote of like, well, COVID happened? That's what really set us back. Is it or do you think it's just going to be like in everybody's rear view mirror, and it's just going to be like same old Lions? They did this, another coaching change. Like if it was just any other regular year, how do you think this year's going to go down in the books?
Yeah, I often, like I do here on a Friday, especially before I get to answer your question, I got a little something for the people. Now you mentioned the word strange, Grifka. Been known to do this a time or two on the show. We got to pull the curtain back here on the show. So one of my favorite funny things that Grifka does that you guys don't hear on the show, but I think it's absolutely tremendous and funny. And again, it's one of those funny things Grifka does that he doesn't even know he does, but I pick up on it and makes me laugh. Is every time, literally, we'll be trying to load up a show or be trying to do something will go wrong or we'll have to reboot. Every time we reboot or re-sign on to Zoom or however we're doing the show, if something went wrong, I know 100% when we come back on, Grifka's going to pause, wait for me to talk, and then go, gee, that was strange. Every time, 100%. So, Grifka, I want to ask you, how was this 2020 season to you before I answer the question?
Gee, that was strange.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. I literally will just wait for it on purpose because I know he's going to say nothing else except, gee, that was strange. And then I'll tell him what went wrong and then we'll go back to whatever we're doing. Batting 1,000 of the sport we shall not speak of with that quote from Grifka. So Grifka, gee, was this season strange, and why? Yeah, this season is going to be known for COVID and for the mess and for all the ridiculousness that went on. But what it's going to be remembered for me and for a lot of people, I think, is just that ultimate breaking point where I feel like I came on here a million times saying year one was just a throwaway year for Pat, as we dubbed him back then. He had to bring in his scheme. He started making people run laps. He started trying to put in this defense. He was trying to get his players. And then year two, ravaged with injuries. Matt Stafford plays half the season or less. All this kind of hope that was still around the team. I'm thinking, man, year three, here we go. We got your team. Stafford coming off those good games that he did have. I did get annoyed by people saying, if he would have played all 16, he would have thrown for 5,300 yards and 48 touchdowns. Yeah, that never happens, people. I don't know if you know this, but when a guy throws 3 touchdowns in the first quarter, he doesn't end up with 12. Just here to tell you. So to me, year three or this 2020 is going to be the year where it all just fell apart, all the hope, all the waiting, all the, this guy's going to play better, this guy's going to be healthy, this is going to come together. None of it happened. Tracy Walker didn't come into his own. Deshaun Hand was hurt a million times again. We still couldn't get after the quarterback. We can't turn the football over. Matt Stafford played same old, sometimes really good, sometimes not so great. Our running game a little bit better, but still 30th in the league. It's just everything came back around to Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn, revealed themselves as not good enough. The whole team blew up. And yeah, I can't believe that we're sitting here at the end of 2020 talking about a complete start over again for the Detroit Lions after 5 years of Bob Quinn, 2 to 3 years of Matt Patricia, and them just gutting this team to make it like the 1998, aka 2008 Patriots, whatever you want to call it. And now we're 5-6 years behind all these other good teams in the NFL, it feels like. It's just, that's what I'm going to remember, is the year the water broke and it's just yup, this ain't working. Yup, time to start over. Yup, just get rid of everybody. That's what it's going to be for me. 2020, terrible year for the Lions. Just an abomination, just a joke from day one in March or whatever this whole thing started to when the football kicked off till now. Horrible. Terrible.
I think I'm going to remember this year as the year where your spirit was broken. I know that sounds bad, but it was, I'm not saying you're fully, like every other Lions fan, like me, something like that, whatever you want to say. But to hear some of the stuff, on some of the shows where I'm like, gosh, man, it sounds like, I'm actually talking, just kind of where you went with this team, your utter frustration with this team, And like I said, I don't know. It's because of COVID, not being able to see your friends, coworkers, whatever, having to stay in the house so long. But that was one of those things where I don't know. You kind of broke, so I'm hoping that you come back around, you'll get hyped up, and start to feel it again. Just as soon as the new
Drink
coach
it in,
and what they're looking to do with the team. Exactly. So that's all I'm going to remember this year.
Grifka, the reason I got to drop the sad music and the reason that you broke me is this is like year 2 or 3 with you on the show. I mean, gosh almighty, it started off
That's what it was.
Year 2, I was like, maybe this will get better. And then year 3, I was just like, nope, I got to deal with this guy twice a week, every week, all the time, all the gimmicks, all the lines, all the rumor innuendo, all the negativity. Like, yeah, it broke me. So did this team, because I'm never going to not root for the Lions. But like I've told you many a times on this show, I'm going to be positive until I can't be positive no mo. And that's what it came to. It's like I had served up so much Detroit Koolaid, the dang quart jug was empty, and I just didn't have any more. Where it's just like I came on here, multiple times here in the last, month or two and said, I was wrong. He's horrible. That's embarrassing. That's not real football. Matt Pat gots to go. All these linebackers gotta go. They gone. I'm not going to not admit it like you do on the show and just stick to Baker Mayfield sucks when he's like taking his team to the playoffs and, DK Metcalf's no good. Only he's the best receiver in the game. I'm not going to sit there and continue to say that. I'm going to straight up say, hey, all that hope, all that stuff I said, it did not pan out. This team played horrible football. It's just embarrassing from top to bottom. So, the scheme was flawed. The culture never worked. The players' effort was poor. That was the other thing I jumped on this year. It's like one thing to lose. It's another thing to lose and be slipping off tackles, not in your gaps, not running as hard as you could. Jamie Collins, just all this stuff I had to watch this year. It's like I just got sick of it, and I'm not going to come in here and tell you everything's great when it's, I don't know. It ain't that great, Grifka. It hasn't been great for a couple years now, so that's why you think I'm broken, because I'm just finally admitting that didn't work. It sucks. I hate it. I want this team to win, and here I am basically 15 years into my fandom, as you would put it. I got nothing to show for it. I got like 2 playoff appearances where we got beat up on, and that's it. It's embarrassing.
I have a question for you, since I mentioned the strange year. You never heard this during press conferences or even questions asked, but do you think the Lions, when they were at Ford Field, do you think they noticed like no fans, or do you think they even hear it during the game? Do you don't think it really mattered to them?
Well, they definitely notice it because it's quiet as a church mouse in there. You can hear, I don't know. You hear these inside Ford Field. Freaking crickets in there. Somebody left the window open when, if you did have fans, I don't have a sound drop for it, but you just hear just loud booing everywhere. These players would be booed off the field. They'd be, the Fords think they're embarrassed right now with what they've seen. Imagine if you had 50,000 people in there having to tell them what they think about this product. This has been the worst year since I tried to block out the Marinelli days and the 0-16, but it's right up there because it's year 3 when it should have been a turnaround, and instead you're just worse. They feel like they're worse on defense. They're worse, in the post-game pressers. They're worse when it comes to overall talent across the board, because people have exposed themselves to not being able to play the game of football, which they were drafted early in the draft to do, or plucked in free agency, that are just hot garbage or tire fire, as Matt Derry would say. So, yeah, they notice because they don't notice. If there were people there, they would be getting real embarrassed. It'd be real ugly, and instead they got away scot-free this year with no fans, limited media interactions, and just the people sitting at home saying like, I'm done with the Lions. Sick of this. Like, I'm tired of, I've heard a lot of people, friends, family, whoever, be like, yep, you talk about it being my breaking year. I've had people just say straight up, like, I'm just done with this team. Now, they're not going to be done with this team if and when they get it all turned around and start winning ball games. They'll be the guy with the hat, sweatshirt, the jersey, the front row at Woodward for the parade, as I always say on the show. But right now, yeah, I know a lot of people that have not only quit, but they're just like, I got other stuff to do. I'm tired of seeing this year after year. So I feel like it was the breaking point for a lot of people, and the Lions got off lucky that they didn't have to deal with angry fans at their stadium or at training camp or anywhere, just like rolled out the football, same old. I hate to say it, I'm not going to say it, but you know what the acronym is. It's not TGIF, but it's that other acronym where it's just like, yeah, well, we've seen the same losing, the same football, the same excuses, the same I want to win for the city, the same old, same old. And it's just getting sick of it right now. Now, am I ever going to quit on them? No. But I'm telling you, like, we're going to have that talk, Grifka. And this might be a live honor segment right now. I don't know if I'm getting the tickets again. I really don't, because no matter how excited I get with the new GM, new players, like, I don't see amazing W's and this magical carpet ride coming anytime soon. So I don't know that I'll be re-upping again, letting you come along for the ride or trying to divvy it up with friends, because I know I got a bunch of friends and family be like, nope, no thanks. I'm good. So, I mean, I don't know, man. Where are you at with it?
No, I hear you. I understand. It's like one of those things. If want to go to a game, I'm sure you could probably find tickets somewhere. And
anywhere. They probably give them to you if you go visit Art Van or somewhere like that. Probably hand you a couple ducats.
Yeah.
So it's like, I might make you do that. Hey, Grifka, go up to the local Kmart, go snag us a couple tickets for the opener. Like, that's kind of where we're at right now.
I mean, it'd be like when I listened to your Believe in Lions podcast with Benny Blades, and he talks about how when he was a kid, if you went to Burger King, you got a Whopper, you could go see a Miami Hurricanes game. Right. What it's going to be down there, if you go over to like Lafayette Coney, you pick up a Coney, you're going to get a ticket to a Lions game.
You mean Benny Blades would actually get a cheap plug-in for the U on the Believe in Lions podcast? Would he actually do that?
Oh, man, I never heard it, but it's always kind of cool when it happens.
It's all about those canes, Grifka. You know that. You'll be hearing that Thursday when you debut on the show. And I let you on the show and let Benny Blade just probably tear you up. I'm going to tell him beforehand, all right, be real nice to Grifka, and then when he asks a dumb question, just let him have it. Just come across the middle like your hair's on fire and just take him out at the knees. Benny will do it.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. I'm just, I don't get starstruck very much, but he's like one of those guys. I mean, like I said, everybody knows it. I've told you, he's one of my favorite players when I was a kid. I loved him when he played at the U. He was like my favorite player on that defender. Just the swag he always brought. And then he came to this team and, it was jumping for joy. I remember being in junior high when they drafted him. We were all like, yeah, awesome, man. Benny plays awesome. And that's just the way we were. And yeah,
you better bring the heat on Believe in Lions, though. Like, I mean, you come in with too much weak sauce or being fanboy. Benny Blades doesn't want to hear all that. He wants to mix it up a little bit. He wants to talk some football. I mean, that's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, I'm sure you'll blow a lot of smoke for him. He'll like that, as far as the U and about you watching them back before I ever knew who the Lions even were, because I didn't care. But I don't know. I'm going to be interested what Benny and you have to do on the BLEAV and Lions pod on Thursday there, where you're going to jump on. Like I say, I know he's your boy, so I was glad to make that happen and do that. That is going to be fun. But yeah, where are you at with the tickets? I mean, I know you're a cheapskate. I know I got to pry you open every year to either get you to pay or actually put in some work and ask a coworker or two to try to buy some of our seats so we don't have to be out $1,000 on these puppies. But I mean, getting them again, we just getting rid of them, and then they do win a Super Bowl in a couple years, and we're sitting at home watching. What do you think? Live on the show right now.
I'm all for if you don't get re-up on the tickets.
I figured so.
I really am, because when you said there's people done with them, I'm still going to root for them, but like some of my closest friends have been fans longer than me. They're like, it might be time to pick another team. And they're just kind of like, what? And they're like, some are like, oh, the Steelers are always good. And one of my friends like, well, the Bears. And it's just like, the Bears, really? You're going to hop to some other team in the division? It's like, man, you can't even do that. It's just, yeah. And those are my friends that ask, you want tickets? And they're like, no, man, they suck. And I'm just like, okay, man. Huh?
Grifka, I think both of us the last little while, we forgot the name of the show. It's called the Detroit Koolaid Cast, everybody.
Drink it in, man.
Like I say, we're almost out of Kool-Aid and cornbread right now.
Cornbread.
It's been a rough year. It's been a rough 3 years. It's been a rough, basically 15 years of me rooting for this team. And like, gosh, I still think they can get it together, but it's just going to be a miracle job if it happens quick. Like the NFL, you can flip it quick, but I don't know, man. It's just like, it's been real tough, I think, on everybody out there. But I knew you'd say that. I know, like, a couple times when I've got rid of them, Grifka's just like, whatever. But I usually try to work hard to keep them and always hoped, they get that playoff game for me. And now it's like you said, maybe we just get the tickets for the opener, however we need to get them. And then if they make the playoffs, just put that old, mortgage on the house, sell the car, whatever it is, to get in the building for that one, because, I'm going to have to be there if there's a game in Ford Field in the playoffs. There ain't no doubt about that.
Yeah, but like you said, it could be a few years, before that happens. So it's not going to be no quick flip.
No, we'll see though. I mean, we'll serve up that Kool-Aid. I'm sure next August I'll be sitting here going, "Hey, Grifka DKC Waffle Maker, what do you got in Game 1?" And then by the time we get to Game 16, we'll have them at 11-5, 10-6, 12-4. Same old.
4. Oh wait, they're adding that extra game for next year, aren't they? That last divisional game or something.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, 17. So now we'll easily get them to 10, 11 wins.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do this. Let's take a break. You already talked about the spot of the Believe in Lions podcast with you and Benny Blades. Why don't we take a short break and get that plug in here really quick?
Grifka, we're going to take a break, and I'm not going to beat you up. I'm not going to go on some big tirade. You know why? Because you said the name of the podcast correctly. You said who it was with correctly. You are probably doing that because you're going to be starring on the show, where every other week you can't remember the name. You don't even know what time it's on. You give it a very ho-hum promo, even though like you tell me most weeks how much you enjoy it, how funny it is, how good of a show it is. Yet here you never give it any love. But today you nailed it. So I won't beat you up. I won't go on some big thing like I just kind of did. We'll just go to the break. Everybody, we'll be right back. What's going on, everybody? This is your host, Derek Oakery of the Detroit Koolaid Cast, and this is normally where I tell you about some of our great sponsors. But today, I want to tell you about my other Lions podcast. It's called Believe in Lions, and that's spelled BLEAV on the Believe Podcasting Network with both myself and Lions legendary safety Benny Blades. Yeah, you know who he is, the hard-hitting safety Benny Blades. Played for the Lions. He also played for you know what it is, the University of Miami, those Miami Hurricanes. He mentions it multiple times a show. Benny loves to talk about his Hurricanes, his Lions, and I love to play this soundbite on the show. We have a ton of fun on that show. We laugh, we joke, we talk Lions. Like I said, he brings up the Hurricanes. I talk about my Michigan Wolverines. It's a really fun show. Benny loves the Lions. He tells great stories from his playing days, as well as we're just rooting on this team. We BLEAV in the Lions. So please go ahead, find it on your favorite podcast platform. Hit that subscribe button and check it out. Share it with a friend. We really appreciate it. So check out Believe. BLEAV in Lions with myself and Benny Blades. Thank you guys so much. Detroit Kool-Aid, we're back from the break. Thank you guys so much for listening. We tell you this all the time. I tell you thank you. Grifka often doesn't say thank you, but I appreciate everybody listening. I appreciate the love on Twitter and the hate, which I'm sure I've been getting this week and weeks in the future because of my Matt Stafford takes and because of the aggressive nature I would take with this rebuild that I hope happens. But you can find us on Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher. Grifka, I was in my kitchen and my grandpa gave me when I was at his house recently, is kind of like, somebody gave me this thing. I don't even know what it is. Do you want it? And it was one of those Alexa devices that connects to all your smart devices. I was like, heck yeah, I'll take that. So I put it in my kitchen and hooked it up. And so now I can just be like, hey, Alexa, play my mix on Spotify or whatever, and just starts playing music. Or, hey, Alexa, what's the weather? It'll tell me, right? All that cool stuff. So the other day I was like, hey, Alexa, play the Detroit Koolaid Cast. And she like, playing Detroit Koolaid Cast on Spotify, and just started playing, and like our music dropped, which is still the greatest music in the game. Then unfortunately you started talking, and I said, hey, Alexa, power off. And she turned off, which was good. So that saved me from one of your horrible takes that I think you were going into at that point. But yeah, you can just tell your Alexa device to play the Detroit Koolaid Cast, and they just start pouring it up. Alexa will just pour you a big old glass of that Detroit Kool-Aid.
Wow, that's cool.
So
cool.
What else we got on a Friday? You haven't got me upset yet. I mean, I've taken a few cheap shots at you, which I've been known to do on the show. You got me all in Grifka mode. We're talking about how bad the team is, how they're not going to win. I feel like we've done this the last couple years here in weeks 15, 16, 17. What do you got here heading into the final game of the year?
Well, once again, on Wednesday's show, you brought up the players that are listed on, injured reserve, all the people that got hurt this year, guys who haven't played, missed a lot of games. I'm not talking just due to like being on the COVID list, but on the hurt list. But it made me start to wonder, with this season, I mean, every team gets injuries, but would this season been different if there weren't so many injuries on the line? Do you think stuff would have went into place for Matt Patricia and really would have worked out? Would the offense still be humming if Kenny Golladay didn't miss so much time? Matt Stafford, if he wasn't hurt again, your conspiracy music right there. But, tough as nails quarterback that we have. But do you think things would have been different? The Lions would be like in the, in the playoff hunt, not, sitting in there right now? Or how do you think this would have been if there weren't so many injuries?
Grifka, let me answer this simply how you often end each Detroit Kool-Aid cast, and that's simply this. Nope. Nope, it wouldn't win any differently. The offense might have been a little more fun to watch with Kenny Boy, but I don't think he would have made the end-all, be-all difference. I mean, TJ Hawkinson had a pretty nice year, yet I don't remember a lot of those 100-yard and 1 to 2 touchdown games like we really need from the guy. He's been 60 yards in a cloud of dust and a touchdown here or there, and that got him starting Pro Bowl nod. So, I mean, the defense, like I said, this was the tipping year for me where a lot of the players that I kind of wanted to see or thought were going to break out either have played or have been out there. They can't cut it, Don't look at you, Tracy, Sean Hand, some of our other he had kind of that 50-50 with Collins. Was he going to be, Cleveland Collins or the beast in New England Collins? And to me, he was the Cleveland, Jamie Collins. It's just like not good enough. So there's no injuries really this year that, in my opinion, totally derailed. Now, I do have a beef that every year the Lions are feel like they're one of the most beat up teams in the league, or we're losing our star biggest name players. But like you said, it almost doesn't matter because other teams got injuries too, and they either find a way around them, or unless your quarterback goes down or your top 1 or 2 defensive studs, or your absolute playmaking wide receiver, you really don't have a bunch of excuses on why you shouldn't have a guy that's at least decent behind them. And I feel like the guys that got hurt either weren't playing good or just straight up weren't good, and then their backups weren't good, and then their backups really weren't good. Pretty much they all weren't that great when you boil it all down. So no, I don't chalk this up as if we would have had a couple more people, we would have been a great team. I mean, the only thing I'd throw at it is we got 5 wins. So let's say you got Kenny and some more defensive playmakers, and maybe you win 2 to 3 more games. That's like a 8-8 season, which to me is an average NFL team. All these Lions fans or people in the NFL that just think their team's going to win every game and, going to roll out of bed and get 10, 11 wins. That's really not how it works. Like, your baseline needs to be 7 to 8 wins. And then as you start to play good and stay healthy and have the guys play well that you've either drafted or brought in free agency, that's when it starts ticking up to like 9, 10, maybe 11 for really good teams. Then you got those couple teams like the Chiefs and whatnot that are always going to be in that 12 to 13 win category. But I mean, Lions win a couple more games. They're at 8-8. I don't think it's that big of an issue, but when you're winning 5 games again, 6 games, I mean, that's just inexcusable, really.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I think there was a point, even if some of those guys you named, first week, if we wouldn't have lost all those cornerbacks and all that, I don't think it would have really mattered. I mean, for everything that we kept saying was the issue, even with those guys that when they were not hurt, we still didn't have it. A pass rush, good coverage at the tight end, stuff like that really affects us all the time. It just seemed that even when we had all the guys healthy, it didn't matter anyway. So I'm with you on that. I think it was, going sideways at some point. I think a lot of the team fell out of favor with Coach Patricia, and his guys were here. I mean, Trey Flowers came out afterwards after he got fired saying he's a good coach. I'd still play for him, but I mean, that's, 1 or 2 or 3 guys maybe, as opposed to, the rest of the team saying, I'm done with this guy. He don't know what he's doing. So I'm with you on that.
My beef too with
there still would have been no playoffs.
It's like Trufant was that vet we bring in every year where it's like, oh, he might be good or this, that, and the other, and they're just never good. They're always either done or they're hurt or they're done and they're hurt. And like, he just followed that same thing. It's like, even when he came back, what did he make a couple plays here or there, and then every other play he was getting roasted, toasted, and extra crispy? I mean, Trey Flowers get after the quarterback every once in a while, but other than that, no pass rush. It's just, you can't really say that, because it'd be one thing if like every time a guy was in and healthy, he was making plays, but even the guys that were in and out, like, their plays seem so few and far between for me. I mean, what do we have turnovers this year? Maybe like 8 to 10, maybe through a whole football season. You got that few amount of picks and interceptions. Like, how are you gonna win? You're not. That's the problem. So no, they just weren't good enough on a bunch of levels, and like, people sell the offense too as this juggernaut. I mean, they've had some good games, don't get me wrong. There's been games they roll out of bed and get 20 to 24 plus points, but I can't remember many games where we just came out and absolutely cooked from first, fourth quarter on offense, or where other teams were like, oh man, we're in a long day against the Lions offense. Like, some days Darrell Bevell had it and was making good calls, and other days were clunking around all game, just throwing the ball to the other team and making the same old mistakes we see from the Lions type of teams. It's like, I don't know why it is. I'm not going to use the acronym, but it's like, just seems like the same type of offsides, turnovers at the wrong time, stupid mistakes that don't happen in any other games, horrible ref calls. I mean, how many times we're going to go through this every year where it's like the same recipe for this team, and all it cooks up is a big, hot, steaming pile of garbage. Like, it felt like that was the same thing this year. It was just same old issues popping up again, the same old injuries. Even when the guys did come back, oh man, Trufant's back. Then he would play. You're like, oh, I guess he's back, but he's also back behind the receiver. He's supposed to be covering like 2 to 3 yards every play. So I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm almost like out of answers right now. It's just not good enough, and it wouldn't have been good enough, I don't think, if you were up and rolling. It just didn't work on so many levels.
Okay, well, with the Lions, we mentioned, even with the guys, we still feel they would have missed the playoffs. It just was just that type of year. With the playoffs coming up, do you look at seeing who's going to the playoffs? Do you like kind of pick a new team just to kind of follow in the playoffs, or do you just watch the games hoping for good football games? You're just kind of gonna, hitch your wagon to like a new team just for the playoff run. It's like, well, this team hasn't won a whole lot, or they're that underdog team. I want them to do well this year. Do you do that, or is it just out of sheer enjoyment you watch the playoff games?
Before I was going to answer, Grifka, I'm trying to find Jim Mora's playoffs. We're talking about playoffs, but all I can find is this for our Lions.
That was a disgraceful performance, in my opinion. We threw that game. We gave it away by doing that. We gave them the friggin' game. In my opinion, that sucked.
So that was Jim Mora's summary of the 2020 Lions season. I mean, he's sitting here saying, you're talking about playoffs? I mean, Grifka, for me, there's a couple things. I mean, I'm suffering through these seasons, as people can tell by my tone, as well as my just waiting for this thing to get ramped up again with the new coach, new GM, new players, maybe possibly, hopefully, new quarterback, new everything. But the thing I am pumped about is, like, I'm not the guy that takes another team or roots necessarily, but what I do like and what I am excited about is I'm going to get to see some good football on the next couple Saturdays and Sundays, which I love when it's on Saturdays and Sundays. I love college football, don't get me wrong, but I really like when the NFL double dips and you get a couple games each day, and I really like when it's playoffs because you get two really good teams that are well coached. They got good players. They play good. They're usually close games, exciting at the end. It just reminds me of all the things I want for our Detroit Lions. So I am excited for that. Some actual good football, good teams, not a game at the end where I'm thinking, what did I just watch? What was that? Like, I don't even know what just happened out there. That's what I feel like after some of these Lions games. And then, you know, like I say, I don't root, but like just looking at kind of some teams and stuff I'm excited about. Like, I like the Saints. I like the Seahawks. I like the Steelers. You know, I like those Cleveland Browns and Baker Mayfield. So those are some teams I'll kind of be rooting for if and when they get in. And then I don't know, Grifka, this is I don't know if you're leading me here, but I mean, I do got a Super Bowl matchup I'd like to see.
Yeah, I was gonna wait, till the next week to talk about that when we know the playoffs for sure, who's in, who's out. Because I don't want to pick a team, like Cleveland, who may lose this week to Pittsburgh, and Indianapolis may beat whoever. That way, Indianapolis is in the playoffs and Cleveland falls out. Even though, Cleveland already penciled into the playoffs, they could still fall out. But
Grifka,
let's wait till next week when we know exactly who'll be in the playoffs.
Why you gotta hate on the Cleveland Browns, Grifka? Why you gotta do that? Oh wait, I know.
I'm like, that's Baker Mayfield right there, Baker. Yeah. I just want to let you know he sucks. Okay. Yeah, there you go. Mark it down.
All I could think when Baker Mayfield's been playing such good football. His team's rolling. They're just steamrolling people. He's winning ball games, putting up 300 yards and touchdowns. And then you come on and say, oh, he still sucks. All I could think is the glee that you get out of this last game where he fumbles the game away. I'm thinking Griffith just thinks he's so happy right now. Bum.
Yeah, he did a nice Cleveland steamer against the Jets. That was a heck of a game right there he had against the Jets.
This is why I can't deal with you on the show, though, because like you don't bring it up ever or even acknowledge that he's playing good. You just say, oh, he still sucks, and then you can't wait until the guy has a bad game to like bring it up, want me to play the drop, want to say how bad he is. It's like, that's all you do, Grifka. You just sit on the negative. You just sit on your takes until they actually somewhat make sense. Then you try to drop them on people. That's what you do. You can't even acknowledge that you're wrong ever. It's ridiculous.
Not on him. He sucks. I'm still marking now. I'm going to ride that one. I'm riding that one off into the sunset.
Go look at his stats. Go look at his team record. Go look at how he's playing. I mean, gosh.
Oh, it's not all about stats. He's helping the team win. Yeah, I know.
See that doesn't even go because he's got good stats.
You can't bring up
and
stats all the
winning.
time. When I bring up stats, you're like, oh, Mike, you bring up stats. It's not all about stats. But then you're like, look up his stats.
Grifka,
if you use that argument both ways, man.
If you listen on the show, I said he's got the stats and the wins, which is even better. The double dip. The only time you bring up stats is when somebody's not winning, and then when somebody has stats but no wins, you don't want to hear about it. So it's like this guy's got both right now, and you still can't say he's good. He's better than probably 75% of the quarterbacks. He's better than our Lions quarterback right now, and yet you still go with, he sucks. Why? Because you said that, I don't know, long ago on the show?
I'm like, that's Baker Mayfield right there. Baker. Yeah. I just want to let you know. He sucks, okay? Yeah, there you go. Mark it down.
We marked it down last year when you were actually right, when he played like an absolute tire fire. There you go, Matt Derry. That's two shows in a row I've used your tagline. But Grifka, he's not a tire fire. He's not he's not whatever you called him, that we could mark it down that he sucks. He doesn't suck. And you need to just finally admit sometimes when you're wrong. Well, what do you think about DK these days? I wish I had a drop for that when you were just running him down. Now you're like, oh, no, he's good, man. He's good. What, I don't understand you.
He still runs a hell of a go route.
And every other route.
He still runs a hell of a go route.
I took him for the Lions 2 years ago, and he'd be on this team doing things, and instead he's just, a top 3 receiver in the game now?
Would he, though? Would he be doing those things on the team? Catching balls from Chase Daniel and David Blaupau, and he'd be doing that too.
He'd be like your boy Calvin, only he wouldn't quit on the team. I mean, he'd be an absolute beast, only he wouldn't retire because of finger injuries. It'd be great. But no, had to go take somebody else, while Grifka said, oh, he's a flash in the pan. He's gonna pull his hamstring. That's why I don't want him.
Wait, who did they take?
TJ Hawkinson, Pro Bowler.
So who would you rather have, DK Metcalf or TJ Hawkinson?
DK Metcalf. I did a whole show on it, Grifka. I'd hear you week after week tell me how the guy was no good. Let's keep it moving. What else we got to talk about? Tired of hearing you.
Keep it moving. Okay.
Keep hating on
next
Baker
week
Mayfield.
I want to hear your Super Bowl pick.
What?
Next week I want to hear your Super Bowl pick when Baker's in there leading the team without old Beckham Jr.
How do you know I'm going to pick Mr. Mayfield? Maybe like Benny Blades would say, maybe I'm gonna pick Mr. Brady or Mr. Breeze or Mr. Wilson. Maybe I got something else up my sleeve rather than Mr. Mayfield.
Okay. Last question. Let's just get to it. Last game of the year. It's probably going to be pretty painful considering what the Lions just cut. J-Ron Curse. He was obviously the stalwart of that defense. He was doing so much there at starting safety. So. What are you looking at this game? Are you looking at another 40-burger put up by Minnesota, or another 40-point loss, or you think the Lions have a tiny bit of pride, or is this one, please let this game get over with?
Let me ponder that for a minute. It's definitely the latter, Grifka. It's definitely, let's get this over with. I hate this season. I hope this team loses for the draft pick. I mean, what was it, 4 weeks ago we had the argument where I was like, nope, we're not at the draft pick talk yet. We still had a chance, and then the bottom absolutely fell out. So, yeah, the last couple weeks, I mean, I don't want to see a W. I mean, what was it, Darrell Bevel or Matt Stafford was going on and on about he wants to play, or like, all the coaches were giving that coach speak of, I love these guys. They work so hard. Like, we got one more game left. Corey Unling, he was on there going, we got one more game left. I was like, yeah, and it was like he was going to change the world with this game. Like, I'm ready to show you something in this final game. It's like, I don't care if you win like 50-0.
I was holding everything back.
In the words of Grifka, if you go out and win 50-0, you still suck, okay? Mark it down. Your defense is horrible. You ain't going to show us anything in this final game that we didn't know, 6 weeks ago. And that's that this team isn't good enough. I don't care how much you want to talk about. You love these kids. They work so hard. They've been in there all year. In there doing what? Tiddlywinks, or have they been studying their playbook? Because I think it's the former. Because I don't know if the ping pong table went back in or what happened, but these guys, I mean, just ridiculous. That whole like, oh, we got one more game, we'll give it our all. It's like, no, don't give it your all. And even if you give it your all, it's not good enough. We already know that. So just don't give it your all, and you'll still lose, and we'll get our pick, and we can move forward with our day. Like, it's going to be a horrible game. Nobody wants to see Dalvin Cook run all over the Lions. Nobody wants to see Justin Jefferson, maybe the best rookie in the game. I mean, similar skills to Odell, running around, snatching footballs, making plays. Nobody wants to see that against our Lions on Sunday. But like I said last week, it's going to happen. I mean, I'm putting up like another 30, 35 points for the Vikings by Kirk Cousins. I mean, gosh, Grifka, what's Kirk Cousins these days?
Yeah, he still ain't that great.
Like Kirk Cousins, you're going to say he ain't that great. You're going to come on the show and continue to tell me how he ain't that great. I guarantee he can put up 35 some points on the Lions. He'll probably have over 100 quarterback rating. He'll have at least 2 to 3 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook will have at least 2 to 3, at least 2 touchdowns, I'd say, and over 100 yards. I mean, 35 to like, gosh, let's say Stafford even plays. I mean, 35-17. Come on. Just get us the pick, get out healthy. Nobody wants to see some late game. Grifka, what's your over/under on a fake punt, a gimmick play, something the Lions pull the old rabbit out of the hat in Week 17? What do you think? Like 100%?
Well, yeah, it won't be a fake punt though. We all know that they did that once and it failed, and then they fired the coach. So no other special teams coach going to try that.
Did they do that, or did he do that? I think it was he, not they.
The best coach that was on the team, he did that. The best coach on the team did that. Said, forget you, man. We're doing that.
Do we need to play the Daryl Bevel audio again for the people?
Yes, please do.
I mean, we had the exclusive on the show. We might as well entertain the people with it again. Hey, Daryl Bevel to Braden Combs.
Screw you! You're fired! You're fired! Whoa! You're fired! You're fired! You're fired! All right! You're fired!
Grifka, I was trying to find if I could pause it because I wanted just to go down every coach, we should have just done that. That should have been the show this week. Just that bunch of drops with just name off the roster. Everybody.
Maybe that's what was it SFH will sound like when people go walk in for the final meeting. It's like you're going to want to go see HR, grab your bag.
Hey, everybody on the team, this is for you from Sheila Ford Hamp. Peace. Hey, Sheila Ford Hamp to the defensive coordinator about his performance review.
It was a bad decision, period, point blank. It was one of the dumbest decisions I ever made.
Oh, hey, gosh, who else is horrible? Hey, Jamie Collins. I want to tell you how I thought you played this year.
We couldn't make a first down. We couldn't run the ball. We didn't try to run the ball. We couldn't complete a pass. We sucked.
I guess that was the offensive review, but you get the point. They all got to get the Vince McMahon treatment. I mean, it's got to stop, Grifka. Like, I can't take it anymore, as you can tell.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm with you on that boat. I think the Minnesota Vikings are just going to come in and steamroll Detroit. Detroit's going to, roll over, kind of play dead in this game, and it doesn't matter who, like the 8th string guy they brought off the practice squad. Dalvin Cook's going to stiff arm that guy all the way down to Toledo just with one thing, kind of like what Derrick Henry did. So it don't matter anymore. So the Vikings probably going to win this game by, I'm going to say 26.
You got a score for us, Benny Blades?
31-5. There's 26 points right there.
26, man. It's such a Benny score. Look at Grifka trying to get on Benny's good side, pulling out his gimmicks, telling him how big of a fan he is. I mean, I can't wait to hear this show on Thursday, see what happens. You guys got to check that out, BLEAV and Lions. But Grifka, I mean, everybody knows they can find you at Grifka DKC. everybody knows you love these late season shows where I'm beaten down. I got no more Detroit Kool-Aid left. I got to admit how wrong I was, even though in the back of my head I was kind of just hoping and praying that things would work out for our team. They haven't worked out again. You take glee in it. You enjoy it. These are the shows where you shine because you get to get all your negative gimmicks out here and, entertain the people or entertain yourself. But I can't take it. It's killing me inside. I just got nothing left here on the show for this week and pretty much for this season. But, hopefully people enjoyed it. Try to entertain you a bit. There's only one thing left to do here on the podcast. It's a fan favorite of the people and, of course, of me. Grifka, do you have anything else for the people?
Nope.
Everybody, he's got 1 week left. Our next week we'll have to recap this game, put a little capper on the season. We've got some off-season plans and stuff we're about to do. Enjoy the show. I know a lot of you have checked out. I know it's been another tough season, but hopefully we'll be able to reel you back in, get the coach, the GM, the draft. Lots of good content coming here on the Koolaid Cast and BLEAV, Believe in Lions. So everybody, take care. Have a great weekend. We're out.
Pack the bag, start the plane. This game is over. It is over. What a comeback by the Lions.
Drink it in, man.
Welcome to the Detroit Kool-Aid, everybody. This is Griff coming at you here on a Friday. Just run solo here today. Me and Derek had a little trouble getting our schedules hooked up this week, so hope you guys enjoy listening to me today. Once again, it's Friday, so that means it's going to be a weather report. It's going to be chilly outside. Winter's here, so it's a great weekend to sit inside, watch playoff football. Some more great games this weekend. Once again, too bad our beloved Lions aren't there, but I'm sure they'll be there soon. I mean, just look at the turnarounds that Cleveland had. Just a few years ago, they were 0-16. Buffalo was kind of wandering out in the desert for a few years. They're back. They're looking really good this year again. Real tough team, not tough out. So, yeah, I know I'm always talking about the Packers and the Steelers and the Cowboys. But, yeah, it's really nice to see some different blood in there. Be enjoying watching the game, especially that Cleveland-Kansas City game. That's I'm pretty sure it's going to be a nice high-scoring game right there, so not too much defense happening. So once again, just Saturday, Sunday, if you're not one of those cold weather people that don't like to go outside and ski or sled or anything like that, hang out inside and watch some good football this weekend. And as always, TGIF, thank God it's Friday. So first thing I really want to touch on was some real good talent in that national championship game Monday night. I know a lot of people were impressed. Me, Devontae Smith, looking real good. Najee Harris out of the backfield looking good. Justin Fields, looked pretty decent here and there. You missed a couple throws, but that's fine. It was another thing is Jalen Waddle, he came back. He had that early in the game, had that really nice crossing route, and then had a little bit of a limp afterwards. So, I mean, there's obviously going to be some talent there that the Lions may look at. I know there's a lot of people looking at, wide receiver form at that early first-round pick, but, right now, I mean, haven't broken down a whole lot of tape. I know Derek's been doing that, starting to do that, get his whole list together. But you're really hoping the Lions, get some defense. I mean, don't get me wrong, Devontae Smith, set up a record, for the national championship game or Alabama bowl game or whatever, doing that in the first half. Ohio State couldn't cover him. He made everybody on that Ohio State defense just look slow. So it's one of those things like if you're going to watch that tape and want to draft anybody from that Ohio State defense, I mean, I realize Sean Wade's pretty decent, but gosh, I mean, Ohio State's linebackers just look plodding slow. So really, I don't want any of those guys. I'm a Lions fan. We just saw the last few years where, slow plodding linebackers will get you. So, I don't want any of those guys. But once again, I've, only watched those guys on game, for my lazy boy, me doing my lazy boy scouting. So I still don't think Ohio State's defense, it wasn't that great. But, once again, That's just me talking. So you guys, if you all disagree, hit me up on Twitter at GrifkaDKC. I always love to talk, some college football right there. But still, let's hope that the Lions are looking for some defense, early in the draft, and a whole lot of that draft, because that defense needs an awful lot of help, and I'm pretty sure we all know that. Next thing I've been kind of hearing a lot about, or people wondering, because was it Deshaun Watson. He's not happy down in Houston after they hired another guy from the Patriots. Not quite for sure what people still think. I mean, I don't know. Has the Patriot way kind of lost its luster this year, or is it just one of those? Oh, it's a rebuilding year. Bill Belichick will be back next year. We'll be fine there. Just keep hiring the guy. They're the ones bringing in all the talent, but still, I think a lot of it has to do with the coaching up there. It just seems that a lot of limbs off the Belichick tree just don't grow and flourish like you'd hope it would. I know Miami's got a good coach there. A lot of people are impressed with the Giants coach, off the Belichick tree, but that happens a lot of places. I remember Eric Mangini had some good years with the Jets, and everybody's like, oh, look at he'll pan out, and that really didn't happen. So just one of those things. I mean, I can see where Deshaun Watson was frustrated with it, and everybody's like, oh, we should trade for him. So I'm seeing all this stuff all over the place. People are putting like trade offers together, like, oh, we'll give him Stafford and our first round pick, and a second round pick next year, and there's one point, me and Derek, we're chatting about this, and we're like, why would Houston do that trade? It's like, yeah, they're getting all the picks, but then again, why would Detroit do that trade? I mean, Detroit needs a lot of help, and I know I always say it, prospects are suspect till they do something, but there's a point where it's just, you can't give a bunch of draft picks. I mean, Watson, he's a good quarterback. He is. I mean, I know Dabo Sweeney called him the Michael Jordan of football, which, I mean, come on, man. It's, Derek pokes at me still about, Jelani Devine being a poor man's Chris Spielman, but, calling, Deshaun Watson the Michael Jordan of football, it's like, yeah, okay, let's just, pump the brakes right there, okay? I mean, yeah, he's good, but, he ain't that good, and so, I don't know, like, Detroit trading a lot of their future away, in draft picks, because once again, I mean, Watson is he is a commodity there, and, he's done some good things, but I think he's also one of those quarterbacks that needs a little bit of talent around him. I'm not saying he needs a stacked, deck, like, some quarterbacks look great with, a stacked team around them when they don't make anybody around them better. Baker Mayfield. But that's one of those things where I think, if he has marginal talent, I think he's a marginal quarterback. Once again, feel free to disagree with me, but if you're willing to give up Matt Stafford a first-round pick and a second-round pick, or some of these other trade offers where it seems like the Lions are mortgaging their future for it, I mean, I'm not willing to do that. I mean, like I said, he's a decent quarterback, but I don't know. Speaking of Watsons, wouldn't you rather have like Randy Watson singing the Lions, after-score touchdown song, their fight song? That'd be awesome if you have Randy Watson and Sexual Chocolate down there, singing that, down the field and gain. How sweet would that be? But I think that'd be the Watson I'd want on the team as opposed to Deshaun Watson from Houston. So I'm not making that trade anytime soon. I'm not looking to do that anytime soon. Once again, whoever the new GM, comes out to be, I guess obviously the one's going to be putting the squad together. And if they feel they want to do that, I don't think so. But I mean, once again, from everything you're reading, I mean, it'd be a pretty steep trade, and also it seems like a lot of stuff's coming out where Stafford's still going to be here for a couple years. Simply, one of his contract, and two, I mean, he's still a franchise quarterback. He's a starter. We all know what he is, and I know me and Derek both agreed it might be time just to move on. See if you can get something for him. I was listening to the radio today, and they're like, you don't think the Patriots would be willing to give up their first round pick for him? I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the Patriots are looking to do. Maybe they want to go get another quarterback. Maybe can do like some more runs. I mean, let's face it. I mean, their offense doesn't have a whole lot of stout talent on it, and Stafford's been known to make a few guys better. But it's one of those things where I remember for the longest time it was always like, well, Stafford, you got to get him weapons. So I would always like where Derek questions his toughness lately. How he's like it makes it sound like he's tough as nails. Always out on the field no matter what. For the longest time, it was like Stafford always needs a bunch of talent around him. That's why they drafted the way they did. Brandon Pettigrew, Eric Ebron, the wide receivers, drafting up, trading up to get Javid Best. And everybody was always like, oh, you need always talent around him. And, there's plenty of quarterbacks that need talent, to prove themselves. But I still think there's quarterbacks out there with limited talent, and they make them better. I'm not a huge fan of Aaron Rodgers. I think everybody knows the smugness, how much I don't like that guy. But, really, he's a quarterback that does make players around him better. And, yeah, he gets a few calls. But still, he's a good quarterback. Let's face it. He's a good quarterback. So, to say that Deshaun Watson's one of those guys that if he doesn't have superior talent around him, he's going to make them better, I don't think he's one of those guys. Yeah, he's mobile, he's got a good arm, but it's one of those things. I still think he needs some sort of talent to be a good quarterback. We all kind of saw what they did this year. Yeah, they traded Hopkins away. And Hopkins, one of the premier wide receivers in the league. I got it. But really, this team wasn't like losing games like 45-38. It's not like Watson was out there just putting up ball, helping his team score a whole bunch of points. And I still think he needs some talent. And right now, the Lions, where they're at with the salary cap, all the guys that are free agents on this offense, yeah, they got Swift, and yeah, Kerryon Johnson's still there, and they have T.J. Hawkinson. Really, with young to no wide receivers on this team, I don't know if Deshaun Watson making a trade for him is the wisest move. So that's something I would stay away from. I wouldn't plan on doing that, and I would just I wouldn't consider if I was the Lions, but who knows what the Lions are thinking. Sometimes they might want, the new person may want to come in and may want to do a big splash or something like that. So me, once again, I'm looking to stay away from that. One other thing, speaking of the Lions wide receivers, I don't know if anybody's seen some of these. I know I've picked up some of these articles. My favorite spot, Lions 24/7, as Derek says, but still, did anybody see like those contract demands Kenny Galladay is putting out there? It's like, dude, yeah, you're good, but I don't think you're that good. Considering what you played 5 games this year, and it was one of those nagging hip injuries, and all of a sudden, once again, I still think you're going to get somewhere like, was it north of 15 or north of 17? I can't remember exactly. I think I said north of 17. North is what I was predicting. But like your contract demands for what you're looking for, Derek, like Derek says, you're not a top 10. Dude, you're looking for that. It's just, come on, like, I don't know who your agent is, but let's be realistic here, okay? Those numbers you're looking for, that's, it's time to pump the brakes on there, buddy. It's like this, like, oh, what I could be. Well, we saw what you could be. You sat out pretty much the whole year. You played a third of the season, if that. So I don't know what you're looking for is really realistic in what you're thinking there. So one of those things, like, I'm not saying you're going to give the Lions a hometown discount. Maybe you still want to consider the Lions, depending on who their coach and GM are going to be, if that's something you're looking forward to. But gosh, I can't remember. It was like 5 years or something like that, and $85 million or something, or some massive contract number. I can't remember right off the top of my head exactly what it is. When I first read it, I just kind of dropped my jaw and went from there, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. So, dude, you're good. I know I don't want to say your Lions good. I know Derek hates it when I say something like that, but I think it's time to realize, who you are and, where you're at, and like the way you were injured most of the year. And yeah, you were great last year, but you didn't back it up. And me and Derek had this conversation about, hey, you had 1 year, okay, cool. Do it again to kind of prove it. And I know that was one of those things where Derek kind of mentioned it back and forth, like, kind of back it up and prove it. And that was what he didn't back it up. I realized, injuries did it. That's I don't want to say that's no excuse, but still, 5 games and people are like, well, are you coming back? Is he coming back? Oh, okay, there's nothing to play for. No use playing him anymore. I don't know what he's thinking. So contract demands. Sure, you're looking for the big payday. I got it. It's your first real big contract, but this one you may be trying to price yourself out of a market, and I don't know if anybody's going to give you that. Then was it Marvin Jones? Marvin Jones, I read somewhere he was kind of interested maybe in like signing with the Dolphins. Maybe just wants to go to a warmer climate. Maybe just likes it down there. I'm not quite for sure where his hometown is. I guess I could have looked that up to get the thought process on that. But that's one of those things where maybe just he likes the way the direction that team's going. Once again, I know me and Derek had mentioned it. Derek had talked about it. Maybe Miami was looking to move off Tua. There's kind of a rumor that they're looking maybe to see if they can get Justin Fields down there. So the injury, his hip injury, has lingered a little more, cost him a little bit from what he could do in college. I know Derek likes, always thought Tua was a winner, liked his moxie, what he could do. Once again, I'm not a huge fan of Alabama quarterbacks. I think they're a lot more game managers than anything. Nick Saban doesn't ask him to be great because they're already playing on pro teams down there at Alabama. And not everybody, in college is obviously going to make the pros, but for as good as everybody claims that the SEC is in football, still everybody on that defense, there's only a few guys, 2 or 3 guys on those defenses that are great, where it seems like everybody on an Alabama offense is great. They got pro offensive lines, pro wide receivers, always a great running game. So Alabama quarterbacks, I don't think ever really need to be great in college. They're already, they just kind of got to be game managers. They just kind of got to be there. So if I never really thought highly of Tua coming out of college. I thought at best he would just be an average quarterback. Nothing great. And to hear that a team's already ready to move off him, but yeah, it might not have to do with his play, but more have something to do with the lingering injury that he got in college. But still, that's hard to hear, and I'm not quite for sure what Marvin Jones, like I said, maybe just wants to go down to warm weather. I don't know. He's played really well. Derek said, no use. Like, I wouldn't write the guy off and say like the Lions shouldn't try to sign him. He did. He had a great year for what he was out there. At one point, he kind of disappeared. He came on really late in the end. I'm on one of those guys that seems like, once again, contract years, guys try to show up more. People make fun of me for that, but it seems to hold true that when somebody knows they're going to get a contract, they want to produce a little more simply because that's what's left in the mind. It's the parting shot where GMs and teams are like, well, look at what this guy does. Look what he can do. Marvin Jones has been around for a while, so everybody kind of knows what he can do. And I'm not seeing some massive payday for him at this age and his where he is. I'm not saying he's old, but he's getting up there. He's definitely well seasoned, but he's obviously going to look to get paid as much as possible. So the way he balled out those last few games, really got to hand it to him. He really showed up. Considering he was really the main wide receiver on that team at that point. Amendola was still around, but I don't know if I'd bring him back. He kind of really didn't do anything this year. Didn't impress me. And yeah, at this point, they got Quintus Cephas, and they could go sign or draft some other guys as well. But see what you can do. I'd bring back Marvin Jones, but hey, if he's looking to go down to Miami or where they're warmer climate, I get it. He can do what he wants at this point in his career. Like I said, maybe he just likes the way that team's going. But that's just, once again, just something I saw that I'm like, oh, okay, maybe he just wants to head down there and finish out his career down there. And if that's the case, more power to him. So I would, if I was the Lions though, I would definitely look to try to get him back into the fold though. So let's do this. I know you had a lot of weeks where you weren't hearing any ads, but it's time to pay some bills again. Got to take a pause for the cause here and get back to getting these bills paid for us, so you keep listening to us here on the Detroit Koolaid. So I'll be right back. Welcome back to the Detroit Koolaid, everybody. This is Griff coming at you here on a Friday. Just talking some basic football here and a few things. Once again, just kind of talked about trading for Watson, the Lions wide receivers. Once again, just want to touch base on a few guys that played in the game Monday night, and maybe a few offensive guys that the Lions would be looking at. Once again, haven't broke down any tape yet. I know Derek's been starting to do that as well, so I'm sure we'll cover more players as the off season goes on. What I did want to touch base with here, obviously it's still ongoing, is the coaching and GM search. John Schneider signed an extension with Seattle this week, so that takes him off the table. I don't know if they gave him any. I don't want to say more power, but Pete Carroll's the one who has the final say out there in Seattle. So anything that he's got the final say on players, personnel. So Schneider, he's out there, obviously looking for talent, but it would have been a nice get here in Detroit. But I understand, you want to stay in Seattle, that's fine. I got it. I mean, obviously Detroit moves on to the next one. I mean, they're still looking at what they brought Dobbs in, Ed Dobbs, from Indianapolis. There's a big rumor around his favorite guy is Saleh as well. But Saleh, I don't know if you saw that earlier this week, he did get a second interview with the New York Jets. So I don't know. It might be one of those things where Detroit, if you want somebody, you gotta push the button now. If Dobbs and Saleh are your two guys, and you like them both, if that's the guys you want to go for, do it. But it's obviously kind of getting a little late in the game here for that. I'm sure. Everybody's like, what are you talking? The playoffs aren't over yet. Still, but if he's your hot commodity, they're not in the playoffs. You might have to just kind of pull the trigger and go with it. I mean, Dobbs was with Cleveland or with Indianapolis, and the Colts got knocked out. So these are your guys. Go get them. Was it also Colbert still out there? The man who's from Pittsburgh. Once again, I mean, he used to be a scout here in Detroit, so he's worked in the Lions organization before, so he kind of knows what he's walking into. I mean, everybody's like, it's a different page with Sheila Ford Hamp. It's going to be different from her parents, which, don't get me wrong, I really hope so. It seemed like, obviously William Clay would hang on to people way too long, give them, because they buddy up to him. It seemed like, if they got a case of cigars from a coach during Christmas time or GM, William Clay was keeping you around. I think Martha Ford, I think I don't want to say she pressed the panic button a little quicker where she wouldn't want to hang on as much, but I think with her it's just age did not sit on her side as well, so I think she just kind of realized it was time for her to move on. So I think Sheila Ford Hamp, she's obviously going to be looking for the right people to lead this in the direction. So Colbert's dealt with the Ford family before. He's been here in Detroit. Like I said, he knows the organization. Once again, I'd be happy with that one as well. So Dobbs, Colbert, I'm okay with either one of those. I know Lou Riddick, a lot of people are asking for him as well. Once again, not comparing him to a Matt Millen type thing, but once again, I mean, the guy's very knowledgeable about football as well. He's been here. I think he would do very well being able to judge today's modern day talent, well, as well as the other guys as well. So once again, Riddick, Dobbs, Colbert, all good picks. The Lions continue to do a lot of interviews as well. They asked, to talk to Todd Bowles, defense coordinator from Tampa Bay. Yeah, I know Bowles was a coach before. I mean, Tampa Bay, defense is decent. Got some good talent there. Don't know how I feel about it. They also interviewed, was it Dan Campbell, the assistant coach down at New Orleans. Now, that's another one. I mean, he used to play in Detroit, so obviously he knows the Detroit as well. But I keep reading these things like, I'd be okay with him as the coach. I'd be okay with him as the coach. And as I'm reading this, I'm just like, why? What has Dan Campbell done for people to be like, yeah, he'd be a fine coach here in Detroit? What, because he's the top assistant in New Orleans? I mean, what, because he's played football, he knows it. At this point, I'm like, I don't care. I mean, I don't know how excited I would be for Dan Campbell to come in here as the coach. And I'm sure, like, he'll say the right things, he'll know what to do, and like I said, he knows the organization, so I don't know if that gives him really the inside shot, but I can't see getting all stoked over Dan Campbell as the coach. And like I said, I'm reading this, and people are like, I'm good with this, yeah, wouldn't be a bad hire, and it just makes no sense to me. I'm confused. He's the top assistant in New Orleans, so what? I mean, that team is Sean Payton's team, and they got Drew Brees. I mean, it was like, we got Matt Stafford. Yeah, you're right, but they got Drew Brees, okay? They got Drew Brees and Sean Payton. Those are two proven commodities. And Dan Campbell's just kind of there as, he's doing his job, assistant head coach, but really, I mean, is he coordinating anything? I mean, he's there just kind of watching practice, and this is the guy you want to, put in the team. I mean, understand, do your due diligence. Interview as many people as you want. But I can't be picking up on Dan Campbell and getting all excited saying this team's obviously going in a new direction if they take Dan Campbell. I guess I kind of feel the same way with Todd Bowles, though, to a point. I'm just like, you okay, Todd Bowles? I mean, I guess I get more excited over other guys, but it's just kind of the way I look at those two guys. And then Marvin Lewis. I mean, you're reading all this stuff like, ooh, Marvin Lewis. Oh, gosh, he said all the right things. Well, yeah, and I like Marvin Lewis. I really don't have a problem with the guy. But it's one of those things where it just seemed, yeah, he made the playoffs a number of times with the Bengals. But he never won a playoff game. And it was like, well, there's a lot of reasons for that. Well, and I think the one that really hurt the most was, I can't remember the year off the top of my head, where it's the infamous Kimo Van Oldhofen game where he hit, Carson Palmer and, was pretty much destroyed his knee in that playoff game where Cincinnati had obviously had a really good team that year. And, after that, without Carson Palmer, the offense wasn't nearly as good as it had been all year. But still, it seemed like Marvin Lewis really underperformed and really underachieved with the amount of talent and the players that he had in Cincinnati. Those Cincinnati teams were good, but it just seems like they always seem to disappoint a little bit, dropping out early in the playoffs. And I know a lot of Detroit fans now are just like, oh, that's what we're just shooting. We want to get back to getting to the playoffs. You're right, but there comes a point where just making the playoffs and losing the first round, it's just like, okay, you want a little more. It's to the point now, it's just like, I want a little more now. I don't want to just get to the playoffs. I want to do some damage. I want deep playoff runs. I want great teams where teams fear them when they walk on the field. That's what I want. I just don't want, we made the playoffs, got knocked down in the wild card round. Okay, congratulations. You had us for weeks, 18, because they're going to 17-game seasons now. So, hey, thanks. Week 18, we had another week, but we could have done, we could have done some more. Or we could have had a better, better team. We thought we had the talent to beat this team. And that's just kind of how I feel with Marvin Lewis. I don't think he really gets the team over the hump. So once again, do your due diligence. Bring him in. Talk to as many people as you want. I got it. I'm cool with that. But once again, this is another guy, kind of like the other two guys that I just named. I don't think I'm going to get all like jonesed up for and just feeling like, oh my gosh, this is it. We're making deep runs with this guy as our coach. I'm sure he's a fine coach. I mean, really, but I mean, you always talk about retreads. That guy is the definition of a retread coach right there. And like me and Derek talk, we're always looking for Detroit to be cutting edge, kind of be out in front of the curve for a change. And I don't think Marvin Lewis really does that. I just don't think he does that. Now, once again, I'm still, talking about Saleh. I'd still really like to see him as a coach. It doesn't seem like Eric Bieniemy is gonna be coming here, but the Lions have interviewed a number of people, and I'm sure once again I'm still the big proponent of, hey, please hire the GM first. Don't hire the coach first. Let the GM pick the coach, and then they're tied together that way. Because if you pick the coach first and the team goes sour, and then the GM's like, well, you gave me that guy. You wanted him first, now I try to give him the guys you want, as opposed to like, hey, this is the guy I wanted. And I think we just saw that, what the Lions did, with Bob Quinn, and here, we want you to, here's the coach, and we want you to keep this guy, we like him, Jim Caldwell, he's a good coach, and we want you to keep him, but obviously Bob Quinn never wanted him, was looking for the easiest way to get rid of him so he could bring his own guy in. So, once again, just let the GM pick the coach. I mean, Lions have done their due diligence, they've interviewed so many people, and once again, it's more like a waiting game now. Once again, I still think if they're really high on Saleh and Dobbs, and Saleh's getting the second interview with the Jets, I think you might have to jump now. Or if you're not, you're like, okay, we think Saleh and X person are pretty much on the same playing field. That's fine, and maybe you can wait at that point, and I'm okay with that. But please, just let's see this one where I want to coach here, and as many Lions fans want as well. You don't want to be doing this again in another 3 years. You don't want 3 more years of mediocre to crappy football. We've just had enough, and it's getting to the point now where, okay, I've seen this long enough. Okay, and everybody's like, well, go root for somebody else. No, I mean, like Derek says, I do get down on them. I do. I got it. And maybe you're tired of hearing me being down. You come to listen to Detroit Koolaid, be pepped up. But there's a point where it's like seeing some of this talent on this team and what it hasn't done. some of the guys that have missed in the draft, some of these free agent signings that have really hamstrung us now with where we're at with salary cap. And like $10 million in space is all we have. I mean, there's so many holes on this team. We gotta do something, here really soon. And I don't know if this is one of those, hey, this is gonna be a 3-4 year turnaround. Hey, like I said, Cleveland, just a few years ago, 0-16. Buffalo, a few years ago, wallowing in the desert, and they're back there doing some damage in the playoffs, knocking off some good teams. So that's what we're looking for here. Maybe not next year, maybe in a couple years they're really knocking on that playoff door. Playing some meaningful December games and getting us hyped up late December. It's like, hey, maybe instead of, we need this, just to be still considered as a playoff team, we need this win to, hey, we're winning the division. We need a home playoff win. We're looking for a home playoff game, so this is what we need the win for. That's what we're looking for. As Detroit fans, we're looking for more than just, just being happy of getting to the playoffs. And I know baby steps, you hear it, but I mean, come on, man. A lot of us Lions fans been around here for a while. We're looking for something. Even like Derek, you could hear the frustration in Derek's voice listening to one of the show. He's been around 12, 15 years. He's starting to wonder. It's just like, when's this gonna happen? When's this gonna? Hey, Matt, feel your pain, D. I feel you. Like you said, come summer, come the draft, come summer when training camp start back up, we're all going to be drinking the Kool-Aid again. We'll be picking this team for 12, 11 wins, even with a 17-game season. That's what we're going to be asking for this team and hoping that turns around. So, once again, it's another important offseason. It starts with, hiring the right GM and coach. And once again, we're all going to be drinking the Kool-Aid out there, doing our best, hoping for this team, go out there. And seems like a lot of teams in the division, Aaron Rodgers, once again, he's getting long in the tooth. They got their, Jordan Love at quarterback, and, there's some okay young talent there, but still, I think they can be beat. Minnesota, everybody knows how I feel about Kirk Cousins. He ain't that great. So still they got Dalvin Cook, and Dalvin Cook's the man, and they got some, Justin Jefferson at wide receiver, and the guy's a stud. Chicago, they still got Mitch, and who knows what they're gonna do. Hey, they made the playoffs with Mitch at quarterback, but still, I still think the Bears they're not that great. So the Lions, a couple moves here and there, they can be once again, competing for. Winning this division and making the playoffs, and that's all we're really hoping for as Lions fans here. So I'm going to keep drinking the Kool-Aid. Me and Derek are still going to be bringing it to you. Big, heaping, glasses of it, overflowing. Hopefully, we get that coach and GM here pretty soon. Then we can start focusing more on the draft, thinking maybe what direction they may be looking to take this team. Complete overhaul, dump a bunch of people, or say, hey, we like some of the stuff here. I think we can win with these guys now. So, I know once they do those hires, me and Derek will be debating that, and I know you guys will be loving to hear that when, what we're saying back and forth, kind of giving it to each other. So, once again, if you like what you hear, give us a like, subscribe to us, tell your friends. Leave a review, 5-star review. Every little bit helps us. Hit us up on Twitter, at Derek Oakrey or at GriffGoodDKC. Or feel free to call and text the line at 989-272-3484. Once again, 989-272-3484. Once again, it's been really nice coming to you guys here on this Friday. Once again, another, weekend of playoffs. Enjoy the games. And as always, everybody, drink it in, man. I'm out. Welcome to the Detroit Kool-Aid, everyone. This is Griff coming at you on a Friday. It is Super Bowl weekend. It's finally here. I know there's been a long time. It seems like a long time without a football game. So, once again, it's Friday, so I'm going to give you the weather report. It's official. Old man winter here in the north has his grip on us. It's chilly outside. Real chilly. So, of course, it's Super Bowl weekend. So, once again with COVID, if you have a person or two over, once again, be safe. But still, have all the same stuff you would always get for the Super Bowl. Go out there, get the 7-layer dip, get the pizza, get the chicken wings. I don't care. Get a big crock pot of chili if you want as well. I mean, it's anything. You can gorge yourself on Super Bowl. It's almost kind of like Christmas and Thanksgiving. Eat as much as you want. It doesn't matter. It's just a full day of football, all the prep, everything like that. So, once again, it's too cold. Everybody in the Northeast, you got that big snowstorm, so you ain't going anywhere anyways. So you have a full day to gorge yourself, get ready for this awesome football game that's coming up that I'll touch base on later. And once again, TGIF, thank God it's Friday. Well, I'm going to start off by saying I would be remiss not to talk about the most obvious thing here, and that is the trade. And one thing everybody's waiting for, Derek called it. Was it on a show, on a previous show, saying that with Brad Holmes coming here, the better chance of Stafford getting traded. He put his conspiracy music on, saying that he was going to be traded to the Rams. I threw one out there thinking maybe he would go to the Saints, but Derek said that probably wasn't going to happen. They already had, his wonder, quarterback in Jameis Winston and, Taysom Hill, who's a gadget player, so they weren't going to go out and trade for, Stafford. But he did choose right and said that he was going to the Rams. Now, there's, once again, like I've said before, this is a debated thought on Matt Stafford. A lot of people liked him. Me and Derek were supporters of him. We always thought he could do a little better here and there, but still, he was the best quarterback the Lions have seen in a long time, probably since Greg Landry. And I've been a Lions fan a long time. Even I don't remember Greg Landry. I just remember hearing stories about Greg Landry. And even when they pined about him, my relatives, it's not like they were talking about Bart Starr or Joe Montana or anybody like that. It was, Greg Landry. He was a decent quarterback. So if you haven't heard of Greg Landry, realize that, Matt Stafford was the best since him, and he obviously was leaps and bounds better than him. So to lose him in a trade, the haul that the Lions got, you can't complain. And, once again, sad to see him go. Matt, you were good for the community. You're always, towing the company line. You never heard any bad words, about you out on the town, carousing, causing mischief in the city of Detroit, making the Detroit Lions look bad, when you were not on the playing field. So, good luck out in LA. Really, I mean, you're getting a team, you got, good running game out there, good offensive line, good skill positions, obviously a lot better defense than what the Detroit Lions have had. So, it's one of those things where I gotta wish him luck. And other people were more than happy to show him the door. It's and they would have traded Matt Stafford for a bag of footballs, a couple kicking tees, and some replacement cleats. So what the Lions got, you have to be really happy about it. A couple future first-round picks, third-round pick this year. Yeah, they are taking a big chunk of salary here with Jared Goff, but after a couple years, getting rid of him, if he's just a stopgap or something of that nature, it's not a bad thing. So they obviously had to take Jared Goff off the hands of the Rams if they were going to give up Matt Stafford, simply what Jared Goff's contract was. Now, I've read a lot of things, how he fell out of favor, how defenses were able to adjust to Jared Goff and figure out, if they can confuse him right before the snap, change the way the defense looked. It was harder for him to make the correct play, the correct call. I mean, he would hold on to the ball a little more. He was I think he's near the top of turnovers for QBs over the last couple years, with either strip fumbles, interceptions, something that Lions fans, are not going to be happy about. But it's one of those things where we kind of have to, deal with it. It is what it is at this point. They've said that with the number 7 pick, if a quarterback fell to them, they still may take the one if they really want them. So I can't see it happening based on, at this point, with the way the team is set up. I can't see them trading or drafting a quarterback at 7 and having both that quarterback and Goff on the team. But like I said, his salary really affects the cap where it's at right now. The Lions are going to have to make some other moves simply because they're over the cap right now. They're going to have to restructure some deals. I mean, there's some deals out there that could use some restructuring, and that with, say Trey Flowers being one of them, maybe Jamie Collins, that would be another one that they could look to restructure as well. There was, talk that, some of the trades that were offered to the Lions, obviously wouldn't have affected the cap nearly as much. It came down to, stuff is starting to come out, things like the Washington Redskins, they offered something better. Carolina made a run right at the end, and that was one of those statements that came out later that Matt Stafford nixed that trade. The one story reading that he said, you can trade me anywhere but New England. That's one of those things where Danny Amendola, I saw earlier this week where they were talking about the Patriot Way. He's like, if you look up in a book at the Patriot Way, you're going to see a picture of Tom Brady. He was the one out there doing it all. Yeah, on the defense, they were putting the guys in the right positions to stop him, but Tom Brady was the one doing the stuff on the offense. So, obviously the Patriot Way didn't work here, and obviously reshuffling the deck, trying to get some fresh blood in here, trying to turn the page onto something new. So I could see why Matt Stafford wouldn't want to go to New England. I mean, I've talked about this on a previous show, following a superstar. I mean, Cam Newton, it's just, he's really fallen off. He looks really old. Even the way he dresses, I don't know. It's like, dude, I guess that's fashion, is what people are trying to tell us. But you're following Tom Brady. He couldn't win no matter what. No matter what Cam Newton did in New England, he never was going to be Tom Brady. He would have had to go out and be like almost perfect and take him to the Super Bowl this year to be like Tom Brady. So I could see it. Tom Brady's going to have a shadow in New England for a long time. So I could see why Matt Stafford wouldn't want to go there. All the pressure that fans put on him here. Imagine that, having to go to that city or go play New England. Well, you're not Tom Brady. You're not Tom Brady. I said it before. The quarterbacks aren't going to come to Detroit and say, well, you're not Matt Stafford. You're not Matt Stafford. Because you could say, well, he never won a big game. He never won a playoff game. Look at his overall record. There's a big difference being compared to, like, you're not Tom Brady or you're not Matt Stafford. Yeah, Matt Stafford, great quarterback. Once again, still like the guy. But the next guy in, Jared Goff, he's the shadow that he's following, and Matt Stafford wouldn't be nearly as bad. Is not nearly as bad as if Matt Stafford was to go to New England. So with that being said, I'm wondering on this though. With all, like I said, it's starting to come out all these offers that were being made, and some said, well, Washington had the best one, stuff that could help the team right now. And with the Lions getting more future picks, there's obviously a lot of holes on this team, and they do need to fill a lot of areas. So getting the most picks possible, especially high-level ones, is definitely going to help this team in the long run. As long as Brad Holmes and all the decision makers knock it out of the park, or fill the roles that what the Lions need with the talent that is needed to get this team into the upper echelons. But like I said, with that being said, it makes me wonder. There's obviously the Rams, pretty much made it known that they were looking to move on from Jared Goff, and they were pretty much looking to, get rid of him as best they could without having to cut him, without having to eat that much cap, his money against the cap. So did Brad Holmes really do his old team a solid by saying, okay, well, yeah, give us your picks? Because obviously Derek mentioned it before, I mentioned it before, the Rams, they don't value first-round picks. They'd rather go get established talent, so they're more than willing to trade away their first-round picks. So Brad Holmes knew this, so I think he sort of did his old team a solid. But it's like, okay, we're going to give you a quarterback that's going to be, fit, that offense that you want to run, can make all the throws, is a little mobile, more mobile than Jared Goff. And they do face some tough defenses out there. Seattle is a tough defense. San Francisco has been, very tough. Sure, they're going to be flipping defense coordinators here. But even Arizona's defense, there's spots where they have some really good players, and they have some holes, but still, that's an up-and-coming defense as well. So to have a quarterback where the game has seemed to have slowed down for him, he's been in the league long enough where he's seen so much that he's not going to get tricked a whole lot. So Brad Holmes really helped out the Rams on that. And yeah, the Lions do play the Rams next year, so it might be one of those things where to say like, oh, he's going to come back, Matt Stafford's going to come back and really lay it on the Lions might not be that good next year. So you could almost see this coming. And yeah, Jared Goff's coming in there. He's kind of got that, I want to be somewhere I'm wanted. And, I'm glad to be here. So to say that Matt Stafford may come back and have a great game against the Detroit Lions, yeah, it could happen. We've seen it in the past with other quarterbacks that have been on the Lions, went to other teams. And sure, every team's different. Derek mentions that all the time, where, hey, every team's different. And each one doesn't have, any contact with anyone else. But still, Matt Stafford, I think, is going to come back here. I'm not saying he's going to come back here and look to just really show up Detroit. But still, it's going to be hard to face him next year when he's wearing that Rams uniform. So Brad Holmes really helped out his team, considering the Rams were much closer to the Super Bowl than what the Detroit Lions are. Yeah, we're here to serve up the Kool-Aid, eat the cornbread. But let's face it, the Rams are much closer to going to a Super Bowl than what Detroit is. And yeah, the NFL can be a quick turnaround league, but still, this team has a lot of holes, and they're going to have to do some magic with that cap to be able to get some, players in here, some really good players, what the Lions really need. So, I guess kudos to Brad Holmes. You helped your old team. You didn't leave that sour of a taste in their mouth. But you got the quarterback, and you took some more first-round picks off their hands. And I've reading this stuff where Rams fans were really mad about this, that they keep on giving up those first-round picks. But look what you're getting in return. Like I've said, you're already getting that well-known. You know what you're getting. You're getting those stars. They're not trading their first-round picks for a bunch of scrubs. They're getting superstars. That's what they're getting. So, yeah, do I care? No. They have great talent evaluators where they're hitting on those guys in later rounds. That's one thing that we complain that the Lions have never done. Seems like second-round picks have been a miss. Every once in a while, they pull a nugget of gold out in those middle to late rounds, but more often than not, they don't. Maybe the Rams are just better at coaching up those guys. They don't find the nuggets. They find guys that fit the system that they're looking for, and they're able to coach them up. Maybe that's what Brad Holmes and that whole front office is looking to do. It's like we're getting the guys here. We're going to draft those guys. We're not looking to be the smartest man in the room. Jelani Tavai, Tracy Walker, I don't know, Will Harris, those guys that maybe if they do fit your system, you're able to coach them up to the level where you drafted them. Because I get tired of hearing, well, they can't help it, they took them there. Well, it's not really an excuse. You took them there because you thought they could play there. So that guy has a little bit on him too. To say oh, they think I'm good enough to be in the second round. I better show them, that I'm good enough to be in the second round, and say, well, I can't help you took me in the second round. I'm more of a seventh round guy. That has nothing to do with anything. Play like you were in a second round pick. Coach him up like you think he's in a second round. That he's going to be a second round pick. And maybe that's what Brad Holmes in this front office can do. What Dan Campbell can do. Get these guys that they want. So, with all these extra picks, a lot of first-round picks, me, it's just, I like first-round picks as long as you take positions that aren't luxury picks, because there's a lot of holes on this team. Let's not be, going out there looking for another tight end, something like that. That's not going to help the team. You got Hawkinson, going to the Pro Bowl. So, I don't think you need another tight end here in the second round anytime soon. So let's go with that right there. So I'm assuming they're going to use these picks pretty wise, and that's the biggest thing that they need to do with this. For this to be a good trade, everybody's like, oh, the Lions got an A+ on this trade. They need to hit on these picks. They need to do what Jimmy Johnson did when they traded Herschel Walker away to the Minnesota Vikings. He hit on those picks. That Cowboys team and those guys in the front office knew how to evaluate talent, and that's exactly what they did. That's what this team now needs to do. They need to be able to effectively evaluate the talent coming out. That's what Brad Holmes is supposed to be doing. He's the college scouting director, so he's got to be able to hit on these picks to get the guys in place. And like everything said, they brought Jared Goff here because he evaluated him a lot, he liked him a lot, and he knows what he can do. So that means that Anthony Lynn's really got to be able to tailor this offense to his qualities that make him an effective quarterback. I think he's a decent quarterback. I don't think he's a superstar. Yes, he's led a team to a Super Bowl. Yes, he has some playoff wins, a hell of a lot more playoff wins than what Matt Stafford has. But he's also had a lot better talent around him as well. let's face it, he's always had good defenses and, good offensive line. The Lions haven't been known for that since Matt Stafford's been here. There's been a couple years where they've had, good defenses. They've had, great offenses. No running game, so they could always just, pin the ears back and go. Where Jared Goff, for him to be effective, I think he needs talent around him. I don't think he's going to raise the level of people around him. He's not going to be like an Aaron Rodgers where, people, or Brett Favre or somebody like that, that's going to take average to middle of the road players and make them better. And when those players go to other teams, people realize, well, they're not that great. This guy's not that great. This guy's not that great. Maybe he's just getting old. No, it's the quarterback that's making him better. Tom Brady does the exact same thing. He makes average players better, so when he gets superstars, it only makes his job a little easier. And I think Goff is one of those guys that needs talent around him for him to be effective. If you're asking Jared Goff to put, the whole game on his shoulders and go out there and win it for you, I think probably, 7 out of 10 times that's not going to happen. So the Lions are going to have to, go get some wide receivers. Yeah, they got DeAndre Swift here, but still they're going to need another running back as well. And they're going to need, there's people say that they have over 3/5 the offensive line is set. Jackson had a decent year. Taylor Decker's coming into his own. Frank Ragnow's Pro Bowler. That whole left side, the whole right side of the line is not that great. So he needs to work on that as well. They need to get that talent in there to make Jared Goff effective. So if he wants to be here, you got him, Brad Holmes. He's yours. It affects the cap, but still, you know what he can do. So get the talent around him to help him out. Or, maybe you think he's a stopgap. Or, this leads me to my next point. Other people were actually calling the Rams on Jared Goff beforehand. So maybe another team such as Washington or Indianapolis, they would like Jared Goff. They got the cap space. Maybe they want him. So maybe, Brad Holmes works another trade. And that was one of those things where they were talking, maybe the Lions give up Jared Goff if they can get, Jared Goff, and they give Washington Jared Goff in their first round pick, to trade down and maybe, get some other first round picks and some other picks in this draft, some other high picks. So it's one of those things I read. It's a possibility. Washington's looking for a quarterback. Indianapolis, they got a lot of cap space. They have one of those, mid to late, first round picks. So maybe that's one of those things that they look to do. But once again, those teams have to be enamored with Jared Goff as well. And he seems, for as many people that are on Jared Goff's side, there seems to be just as many people that think he's just completely average, middle of the road. Once again, not that great. So it's one of those things where they got to kind of overlook what he's not that great at. So for Detroit to ask for multiple picks for Jared Goff, I don't know if they're not going to get a haul like they did with Matt Stafford. Come on, let's face it. I know me and Derek will talk about this probably on another show, but Goff, he's not very mobile. He throws a good deep ball, but his arm's not really strong. I mean, he's got a decent arm, but he's not going to fit that ball into tight windows like, Matt Stafford did. And sure, Matt Stafford had plenty of throws that you were thinking, hey, who are you throwing to? You threw that ball high, but I don't think Jared Goff's one of those guys that's going to be like, if a linebacker and a safety are converging on a guy over the middle where Stafford would be able to zing it in there. I don't think Jared Goff's that guy that's going to be able to do that. And I'm still thinking that the game hasn't completely slowed down for Jared Goff yet. You hear that a lot. The game will slow down once you get it. And if defenses are able to adjust late, on the clock to show, it's like, okay, they're showing this, and then all of a sudden, right before you go to snap the ball with 2 or 3 seconds left on the on the play clock, they switch their defense and he gets all confused. I mean, that's one of those things where established quarterbacks that have been around a while, they know it's like, okay, they switched this, we got this. But I don't think the game has slowed down enough for him yet for that to happen. So other teams are going to want to, if they want him, they're going to have to develop him as well. I can't see somebody like Washington or Indianapolis just trading for him just to be a stopgap. I don't think that's going to happen. So if they want him, they're going to be enamored with him. They're going to plan on keeping him around for a while. They're not going to give up high draft picks just for a year or two rental. That's just stupid. That would drive the GM of the show, Derek, nuts. That would drive him freaking bonkers, which it would. But that's what everybody's saying here. Oh, he's just a stopgap. He's just a stopgap. But Brad Holmes knew him. He likes him. So maybe some other team wants him as well. So once again, it's always a distinct possibility. Some other team may come up, may be enamored with him, may want him as well, and the Lions make another trade, get more picks. There are a lot of holes on this team, and the more picks, the better. Because once again, with where they are with the cap right now, they're not going to be able to fill everything through free agency. So right now, it looks like building through the draft is going to be the biggest thing that the Lions are going to have to do. Let's do this. Before I get into my next point, let's take a pause for the cause, pay a couple bills, come back, do the second half of the show, and I'll be right back. Welcome everybody back to the Detroit Koolaid. This is Griff here on a Friday. Just talking about, made a couple observations about the trade, talking about Jared Goff, gave you my short take on what I think he's good at, what he's not that great at, and how he could be a serviceable quarterback here in Detroit, especially with the way this team is going to be put together in Brad Holmes' eyes. Speaking of Brad Holmes, I was reading earlier this week, they're obviously been doing it for a while now, but still, it's starting to come out the talent on this team. They're doing the roster evaluations of everybody on this team. I'm sure they've been doing it for a bit, but still it's starting to come out now. And I read one article like how it said Jelani Tavai and Jared Davis have really stuck out to him. And when I read the headline, so naturally it caught me. It did. It caught me. I had to read it. I mean, it did what it was supposed to do. Good writing to whoever wrote it. No, it wasn't on Lions 24/7. I know like Derek thinks that's all I read, but no, that's not where it was. When I read the headline, all I could think was like, stuck out what? Like, made you think like these guys could be good in what you do? Or the stuck out's like, God, these guys were so bad. Where'd you take them? And I know there's people out there supporting Jelani Tavai, and I know there's people that supporting, Jared Davis, saying, oh, they didn't use Jared Davis right. But the Rams and the Saints both kind of ran those speedy defenses. They like speed, and they like athletic guys. So bringing Jared Davis back to be that, hand in the ground, edge pass rusher who's great on a blitz. Everybody's like, oh, they should move him to the outside, because, that's where he would be better. But still, I mean, outside linebackers tend to have to cover those running backs out of the backfield, your tight ends. And we know Jared Davis is terrible at covering guys. So that's one of those things where when you get him on the field, other offenses are going to point out, well, he's just here to rush the passer. That's what he's going to do. So I guess maybe they'll be okay with that. I can't see that happening. Yes, he's fast, but he still takes poor angles and he still can't cover. So if you're just looking for him to be a smallish defensive end to come off the edge to rush the passer on second and long and third and long, you're really hamstringing yourself with one guy there. But that's just my personal opinion. Once again, if you disagree with my opinion, hit me up on Twitter at GriffGoodDKC, and we can discuss. Or feel free to call in and text or message at 989-272-3484. Once again, that's 989-272-3484. And, leave a text and say, Griff, you don't know what you're talking about. Derek's right. You have no idea ever what you're talking about. Once again, it's just my opinion. I'm just throwing it out there. And as I always say, reasonable minds can differ, and, it's my opinion. I'm entitled to it. It's your opinion. You're entitled to it. That's fine. Either, I don't care how you came to your decision. But anyways, some people like Jared Davis. Some people think he should just be a pass rusher. I myself, I don't think he's that great. He's not that great. I don't care that he's fast. Still, if you just want him out there just to rush the passer, fine. But I think you're really hamstringing yourself because then you're really limiting on what that guy can do. Now, Jelani Tavai, I don't know how this guy stood out in Brad Holmes' eyes. It had to be because this guy can't cover either. I mean, once again, he's slower than a glacier. He can't cover a coffee table. He just bad. He might be one of those guys like, why'd they take this guy where he did? He doesn't fit in our plans at all. Yeah, he tries hard. I mean, yeah, but you can just see it. Obviously, that he's not there. So I have no idea how these guys would even fit in Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell's, and Aaron Glenn's defense. I don't get it. So there's got to be other guys out there that they're interested in as well to fit. So they're evaluating everything, and that's kind of leads me back to my prior points. If they're like, this isn't gonna, these guys aren't gonna work, we need better talent, they may be more apt to trade Jared Goff just to try to get more picks. So they're not going to be able to fill everything through free agency. Evaluating this roster for what they're looking for, if it's speed and quickness, people are saying Jeff Okudah's like, Ramsey out in LA. And yeah, they were locked down and they have good footwork, but hopefully I just need to get down to training camp and shake Jeff Okudah's hand. I mean, it worked for Darius Slay. Slay had even though I shook Slay's hand when he was a rookie, his second year he really came around. I just think I need to get down to training camp and shake Jeff Okudah's hand. Even though I'm a huge Michigan fan and he went to Ohio State, I'm fine with it. He's on the Lions now. Chris Spielman's one of my favorite players of all time. Respected the hell out of him, loved the hell out of him when I was a Michigan fan, and he was at Ohio State. I think it was damn good. When they drafted him, I was ecstatic. I was like, he's good. And I just remember seeing him on TV. Yes, I was even doing my lazy boy scouting at that point, watching Michigan Ohio State games and all other Ohio State games when I was younger. And I'm like, wow, he's good. He's really good. So, yes, even though they went to Ohio State, I don't hate him. But maybe I don't know if Okudah's ever going to ascend to how good Ramsey is, but they do have some similarities. So stop being so tough on Jalen Ramsey right now, saying that he's a bust. He may turn into that. And then, yeah, I can be the waffle maker and say, yeah, he was a bust. I knew it all along. No, I'm laying it down right now. Let's give cornerbacks a few years, a couple, 2-3 years before we officially label them a bust. Unlike Tease Tabor, which we know even at that point, I'm like, well, maybe he's got good skills. And yeah, after watching this guy like 3-4 games, I'm like, yeah, he sucks. So yeah, see you later. You are slow. There's guys beating you on, with a walker. You're just terrible. Jeff Okudah's not that bad. Okay, he'll be fine. And I'm sure Brad Holmes is looking at him as well, figuring out how to improve this defensive backfield. They need safeties. Will Harris. Does he fit the scheme? He's another one of those guys. He can be a little bit of a hitter, but he misses a lot of tackles. He drops his head on tackles. I thought maybe they could coach that out of him. I said that when when they drafted him. I go, he drops his head and misses a lot of tackles. What's he done for Detroit? Drops his head and misses a lot of tackles. So it's one thing that's been driving Derek nuts, how he hasn't progressed the way he thought he would. Tracy Walker hasn't taken that step either. And evaluating what he can do, he's long and rangy. He's got long arms. Maybe it was just coaching with those guys. Maybe the guys that they're bringing in here are going to fit some of those spots that Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, Aaron Glenn are looking to fill. Anthony Lynn on offense, with Brad Holmes having to evaluate this offense, saying, I saw an article saying that he would like Kenny Golladay to come back. Well, I don't know. I think Kenny Golladay is going to price himself out of Detroit. Really, he ain't looking to give this team a hometown discount. Saying that he laughed out loud after he heard Dan Campbell's intro press conference. All I gotta say is, Kenny, you've been good here in Detroit. Thanks for your time here. See you later. I think this is one of those times where I think even Derek would be able to find somebody comparable to him in the draft. Say, like, this guy's him. Go get him in the second or third round. So it's one of those things where I had mentioned before, where Jared Goff does not fit balls into tight windows. Kenny Golladay, there's times he's open, but he's just ran a good route, and it's just confused the defense. If it's a man coverage, he has a hard time getting separation. So I don't think Kenny Golladay kind of fits. They would have to really scheme stuff out to get Kenny Golladay open for Jared Goff. So maybe he doesn't fit. Yeah, he wants him back. He's shown himself to be a good to great wide receiver in this league. But I think he's going to price himself. I think other teams are going to, really jack up the price on Kenny Golladay, even though, Brad Holmes said that he didn't want him back. So to evaluate all the talent or lack thereof on this team, and then try to figure out, I guess you're going to have a plan. Dan Campbell's already preaching, let the process work, patience, let the process work. How many years are we giving you? Yeah, we've been Lions fans for a while. You heard Derek get frustrated. It's like, I often question, like, dude, how are you still a fan? All you've seen is bad football most of the times you've been a fan. How did you not go root for another team already? So Lions fans are hungry. They're really hungry for it. And yeah, you're going to get a couple years, but if you look really bad from the start, you're going to be hearing about it, the first year. So you got to be competitive, a lot more competitive than what they've been. So Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, really evaluate this team. You got some other guys. John Dorsey knows how to, is really good at picking talent as well. So you guys got a lot of work to do. I believe that a lot more than you guys walking in the building saying, wow, we have a lot of work to do. More so than Matt Pat trying to put that crap out there, walking, we got a lot of work to do. No, you had a team that was, barely missed the playoffs. You didn't have as much. You're just an egotistical piece of garbage that, Patriot way, I'm the smartest guy in the room, me and Bob Quinn, blah, blah. Get out of here. Dan Campbell, you say we got a lot of work to do. Brad Holmes, John Dorsey say you got a lot of work to do. Okay, I'm going to take your word for it because we all know as Lions fans what Bob Quinn and Matt Pat did to this team. Where you're at. I mean, talking the dregs of some of this talent on this team is terrible. It's bad. So you got a lot of hard work coming up. You got to evaluate this team, figure out if you need more picks, see what you can trade. I mean, there's probably some other talent on this team that some people might want that you could trade for. Trade for other picks, even if they're later rounds, 4th, 5th, 6th, something like that. So I wish you guys luck. Just make us proud. Make us proud to be Lions fans again. Get us somewhere. Make us fans, want to watch these games, getting us, to the playoffs in late November, early December, as opposed to let's lose so we can get a better draft pick. So that's all we're waiting for here as Lions fans. And last point I have for you, once again, Super Bowl weekend. It's Kansas City versus Tampa Bay, and it's going to be a great game. It's one of those things I'm sure everybody's going to be, a lot of people are going to be rooting for Kansas City. They like their offense, high flying, they seem hard to stop. A lot of people are just going to be simply rooting against Tom Brady in Tampa Bay, simply because, Tom Brady was pretty successful in New England. I myself, once again, I love Tom Brady. I'm a Michigan fan. I like Tom Brady. I do. It's one of those guys that's just like, say it before, I wish he was ours. I wish he was ours for all those years. So, who am I going to be rooting for? I guess I'm going to be rooting for Tom Brady. I mean, I really don't care who wins. I mean, I'm just hoping to see a really good game. But yeah, I'd like to see Tom Brady and Tampa Bay win it. I mean, nothing against Kansas City, nothing against Pat Mahomes. The guy's hell of a quarterback. Nothing against Andy Reid, any of that talent. But still, I mean, I think I just like Tom Brady more, so that's who I'm going to root for in this game. If you want to if I'm looking to make a prediction, I think this is going to have to be some sort of, it's going to be a high-scoring game. It's not going to be like a 53-48 or anything like that, but Tampa Bay is going to have to put up some points to keep up with Kansas City. Tampa Bay does have a decent defense. Kansas City, I think Tampa Bay's defense is better than Kansas City, but they're not gonna keep Kansas City down. Kansas City gets their points. It seems like teams get up. I thought Buffalo had a pretty decent defense and would keep them down, but that didn't happen either. So this game, if for Tampa Bay to beat Kansas City, it's gonna have to probably be I'm gonna say it's going to be 37-32 Tampa Bay. There we go. I know 7-2. Those are kind of 7's a good score on the board, but 2's really not. So who's ever got boards this year, good luck on those as well. And hopefully in the next couple years, we're talking about the Lions going to the Super Bowl. Dan Campbell's got this team all fired up. Brad Holmes has brought in the talent, and this team is scary for teams to play. That's all we can hope for at this point. So once again, everybody, keep drinking it in. I appreciate you guys listening to me. Catch you next week after the Super Bowl. Everybody have a great weekend, and I'm out. Welcome to the Detroit Koolaid. It's Friday, and this is Griff coming at you today. Once again, now Derek had his Wednesday show, did it with Logan Lamorandier. Logan dropped some knowledge and some opinions on the Detroit Lions. Derek was there asking him some poignant questions and having his quips like he usually does. Hope you guys all enjoyed that show, but you just get me today. As it is Friday, of course, I'm going to start off with a weather report like usual. Considering what 3/4 of the United States was gripped by a winter weather storm this week, everybody's probably still inside, either shoveling out or just not wanting to go outside and play in the snow. But this weekend it is supposed to be a little warmer here in Michigan. I mean, by a little warmer, I mean low to mid-20s as opposed to the single digits that we have seen earlier this week. So, I mean, yeah, there's no football happening, so feel free. You probably got some other things you guys want to do. Catch up on some, DVRs or, watch something on Netflix, do some stuff with the kids. Go outside, go sledding. It's actually a nice weekend to go sledding. That's what I'll be doing with my daughters. But anyways, TGIF, thank God it's Friday. So first thing I want to touch base on was Kenny Golladay. They were thinking about using the franchise tag on him. That was one thing that was mentioned that would be a possibility with him. Now, as always, the franchise tag, it pays you in the top amount at your position. I know I said before the season even started that Kenny Golladay would be looking for something roughly $17 million north per year. And as on a previous show, I mentioned it, and Derek said it could have been old information that he turned down a $16 million a year offer. So I'm not quite for sure what Kenny's looking for. There was always these rumors of him going to another team as well, and the one that was out there was the New York Giants. I do remember that one. But the franchise tag, I remember when it first came out, players were all for it because it guaranteed them a spot on the team and guaranteed them money. And now it seems like players don't like that anymore. They don't like having the franchise tag. It really limits their options. I know some of them hold out when they're franchise tagged. I'm not sure if Kenny would do that, or even if they would franchise him. Having the Lions only having Quintez Cephas as their only viable wide receiver right now, it's pretty thin there. So I could see why they would look to do that. I think it would be beneficial for the team to re-sign Kenny Golladay. I know he was injured most of last year. Part of that could have been just by the season the Lions were having, and maybe, who knows, maybe he didn't like Matt Patricia. Seems like a lot of players didn't like him, and they were happy to see him go. But I don't know if Kenny Golladay wants to be here. Like I mentioned on a prior episode, that after he heard Dan Campbell's press conference, he said he laughed out loud. So maybe he's not taking the coach seriously. That would make it pretty difficult for him to, listen to him, pay attention to him. My thoughts on it: if they do franchise tag him, I'm all for it. It's 1 year, and they can see what he can do. If they like him, maybe they do break the bank for him. Maybe he does bounce back and have the year like he did in 2019, where he just was all out for the Lions, and we were all so impressed by him. And he was that wide receiver that we were looking for after Calvin Johnson. So it's a 1 year deal. I don't know. I don't know if Kenny will sign or not. If he wants to go somewhere else, good luck to you. I don't have an issue with it. If the Lions do franchise him, there's always that possibility they franchise him, then they do the sign and trade. Naturally, with the sign and trade, whoever he goes to, they're going to want to work out a long-term deal before the trade is consummated, simply because you're not going to want to pick up a guy for 1 year on a franchise tag. I'm out. So they're going to look to they would also look to extend him as well. So there's still many options here for the Lions with Kenny Golladay, what they want to do, and the franchise tag is out there for him. If he signs, cool. If not, no big deal. I guess the Lions will have to find somebody else. It's a pretty deep draft for wide receivers. I'm sure Derek has a plethora of wide receivers out there, through the first round all the way through the end of the draft that he feels could fit the Lions. And I'm sure he'll bring you that information as well. There's obviously some mock drafts out there, and then Jalen Waddle, some people have taken them. And Devontae Smith's out there, Jamar Chase, all first-round picks at number 7. Me personally, they're all good. They all there's certain skill set they're looking for. They're all burners. Lions haven't had a burner on the field in a while. So, but once again, it's a deep draft. I said in a prior show with Derek, what would you take? I'm like, defense. That's really what this team needs. It's a deep draft for wide receivers. You can get one later and maybe, sign somebody as a free agent, something like that. So I don't think the Lions are all die hard. I'll have to go all in on Kenny Golladay. If they do franchise him, cool. Next thing I wanted to talk about here really quick is I saw this article. It was, possible free agents, cheap free agents that the Lions may, look to bring in. And the last one was a surprise one. It said, Jared Davis, bring Jared Davis back. And I saw that, and I was just like, why? Why bring him back? Once again, why? And people like I said, people are like, well, they didn't use him right. They you didn't fit the scheme. They got to do something else with him. And, yeah, I guess that's a possibility. But I think at this point as Lions fans, we kind of know what Jared Davis can do. What he has. I don't see this guy all of a sudden taking a big leap forward and he's becoming some, maybe a possible Pro Bowler, something like that. I don't see that out of Jared Davis. He just doesn't seem, he's very Ernie Sims to me. If anybody remembers Ernie Sims, he was very point and shoot. He was fast and, he could tackle, somewhat, but Ernie Sims also had a lot of drawbacks that made him not as effective. Even when he moved on too, they ended up, moving on from him, and he went to the Eagles, and he wasn't very good from Philadelphia. And I just think Jared Davis, we know what he can do. So if you want to bring him back, I think it's just almost kind of like a waste, or like you're kind of settling, I guess. I mean, why would you? I mean, I don't know. I was after reading this, I was trying to rack my brain of players that have been here, and the Lions let them go. I'm not talking after, they signed, the rookie deal and then signed another contract and left late in their career. I'm talking like early on. And everyone's going to point to Kyle Van Noy, and I get it. I understand Kyle Van Noy. I mean, we've all heard the story about one of the assistant coaches looked at him at one point in his rookie training camp, said, "We don't know what to do with you." And that's just one. That's one, poor coaching. Two, I mean, even the general manager, if you don't know how to use the guy or what you're going to do with him or how he even fits your team, why draft him? And Kyle Van Noy went to New England, had a very, was very solid there. Was good, won a Super Bowl ring there. Was signed with Miami last year. He was decent for Miami last year. But there's been so many other guys that the Lions have gotten rid of when they were young like that. And like I said, I really can't think of anybody. And somebody's going to point to me and say, well, look at Eric Ebron. Look what he did in Indianapolis. He went to the Pro Bowl the next year, and he was great. They threw him the ball, and he caught everything. I just think Eric Ebron was very motivated right there. There's a difference between being motivated and being good. I think he just really wanted to show the Lions up that they made a mistake. You should have kept me. But then the next year when he was in Indianapolis, it started to come back out again. No, Eric Ebron kind of went back to himself. Water found its level with Eric Ebron. He was what he was. He was here in Detroit. He dropped the ball a lot. Wasn't that great. And obviously Indianapolis was more than happy to kick him to the curb as well. And then he went to Pittsburgh, and, Eric Ebron's out there doing some tweets about, going to Pittsburgh and blah, 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 and, having some success there. But still, you had a lot of drops there as well. And you're completely average, dude, at best. So were the Lions sad to lose him? No. Was I sad to see him go? No. So it's happened, for even in the recent history of guys. I remember when there was the talk after, was it Roy Williams and Kevin Jones? There was a talk like they were going to let those guys go before their end of the contract as well. And it kind of punched me in the stomach. And I was just like, wow, man, that's a couple high draft picks. And gosh, they could be good if they did this and did that. And they just used them right. And then after a little bit, I kind of took a step back. And I was just like, why? They haven't really done anything here anyways. I mean, Roy Williams was always Mr. Gator Arm if he was going to get hit. If you watch his tapes, I mean, yeah, he had a couple nice catches, but the guy didn't like to get hit at all. Kevin Jones has always looked to run to the outside like he did in college. He was fast, but he could often get to the outside. The guy wasn't running up the middle at all. If he was always bouncing it to the outside, trying to get to the outside, and he was getting tackled, for like a couple-yard gain. That guy never busted off any runs at all. I mean, Javid Best, we all know him. We were all happy when they drafted him, but the whole thing with him was his concussion issue that he had out at Cal, and that's what peaked its head here. So there was somebody else that the Lions let go pretty young. Kevin Smith. I mean, we joke about Kevin Smith. He was one of those guys. He would just, he had a lot of carries at Central Florida. And he was a workhorse down here, but when he got to the pros, he just wasn't fast hitting the hole. He seemed to get tackled relatively easy. He couldn't break a whole lot of tackles. And there was another guy the Lions let go. It's just one of those things where Jared Davis, we're just going to hang on to him because he may fit, he may do something. I just don't see it. Once again, I could possibly totally be wrong, and I would be completely fine with that. I mean, okay, eat some crow, but I don't think so. I think it's my lazy boy, as Derek says, lazy boy scouting. It doesn't take a whole lot to see that Jared Davis ain't that great. He's not. I mean, the guy can kick rocks. The guy can't cover a coffee table. And, he's a total point-and-shoot player. It's just like, Jared Davis, you run here, he'll go do it, and he'll be really good at it. But if you ask that guy to read and react at anything, he's not good at that. He's Ernie Sims. That's what he is. So, see you later, Ernie. See you later, Ernie Slim / Jared Davis. You guys are one and the same. Go somewhere else. You might have a little bit of luck, but like I said, it seems at this point the Lions have a little bit of a history of that. If they let him go, yeah, they might have a little modicum of success somewhere else, but it doesn't happen very often. It's usually just a bad draft pick. So, as Jared Davis, I don't want him back at all. Another one that I saw an article recently as well that Jeff Okudah was ranked as the worst first-round draft pick last year. And of course, it caught my eye, and of course, I'm gonna read it. And as I read it, it totally made sense based on where he was drafted, how he played, which was pretty bad. And we will admit that he had a very, very bad rookie year and struggled a lot. And everybody will mention, well, learning, to play quarterback in the NFL, it's a hard transition from college, and maybe he didn't fit in the system exactly what Matt Pat wanted to use him as what he played at Ohio State. Ohio State, he was more of a press man right at the line. Matt Patricia, they said they liked to play it, but it always seemed like Okudah was always backed up a couple steps. Maybe because we know Okudah's not the fastest guy. He's not Tease Tabor slow, but he wasn't the fastest guy either. So maybe they're more worried about him getting beat off the line and just getting blown by, and the quarterback's just going to do an easy pitch and catch to a guy just running down the sideline. Maybe that's why. But I still think Jeff Okudah is strong enough to knock a wide receiver off his route early on. So you got to get him up there. You got to do almost like a bump and run of press coverage with him, and that's what I don't think Matt Pat did with him. So I totally saw the article's point of view, but I don't think he's the worst player in the first round. I mean, to say his production based on where he was drafted, yes, it was pretty poor. So yes, but I highly doubt he's the worst first round pick, the worst player, I guess, in the first round. I mean, he was drafted, third for a reason. We all assumed he was good. Some people think it's where I think taking a tight end early on is bad. Some people find taking a cornerback really high is bad as well. They don't like it. It's just, once again, it's just opinion. And you're entitled to your opinion. If you think it's a luxury pick, or if you think you can get cornerbacks a little later, or cornerbacks in the first round are not an odd thing. It happens a lot. Just taking one that high, people don't like it. But I mean, I didn't mind it. I still think he's going to be good. So it's just one of those things where I think that's all it's going to have to do is motivate him, and he's going to become better for it. And he just sees that. He sees that, and it's just going to motivate him to be the better player, to help out the Lions down the long run. Maybe he needs that little pat on the back from the new coaching regime. Aaron Glenn's going to help him out. He knows the position. He played in the NFL for years, so it can only help him get better. And I still think the same can be said for AO as well. Having Aaron Glenn as the defense coordinator, knowing the position, it could help those two young guys really step up. And I'm not expecting Desmond Trufant to be around. I mean, that guy was a big disappointment. I'm looking for him to be a cap casualty, and maybe the Lions can get some money saved by getting rid of him. But Lions got young cornerbacks, Okudah and Awarie, and Aaron Glenn's going to help him out. So, Jeff Okudah, take that article for what it's worth. Use it as motivation. Use it as, billboard material, whatever you want to call it. But I can see you having a definite bounce back here in year 2 here with the Lions. Let's do this here really quick before I get into my next subject. Let's take a pause for the cause. Pay some bills here. You'll hear a couple ads. Once again, thanks for supporting our sponsors, Anchor. And you'll hear an ad for Derek's Believe in Lions podcast with Benny Blades. It's a good show. Benny's got some good stories there. And him and Derek, Benny Blades and Derek, they do have their little banters back and forth and have their disagreements and agreements. It's a good show. You should give it a listen. Once again, you can find that at any place that has does podcasts as well. So I will be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to the Detroit Koolaid. Thanks for listening to our sponsors. I appreciate it. Once again, find us, tell your friends, hit subscribe, listen to us, and once again, leave a nice feedback for us. It can only help us out, and we love hearing from you guys. People, hit us up on Twitter at at Derek Oaker or at GrifkaDKC, or feel free to call in at the call or text at 989-2 989-272-3484. That's 989-272. Kevin Smith, Herman Moore. Give us a call. Give us a text, actually. We'd like to know your opinion on some stuff. So, or how you even feel about the upcoming Lions. How you feel about Dan Campbell as a coach. That would be nice to hear as well. So, my next topic, what I really want to touch base on, is now that Jared Goff is on the Lions. I know at one point last year, prior to the season, I did a show of ranking positions in the division. And it once again made me start to think of where, with Matt Stafford gone, I had him right behind Aaron Rodgers. But where's Jared Goff fit in this division? It seems like there's going to still be a lot of turnover. It seems like every team, from what I've heard in this division, could have a new starting quarterback going into next year. There's rumors seen about Carson Wentz getting traded to the Chicago Bears. Was it the 49ers were talking about trading for Kirk Cousins? Aaron Rodgers looking to move on from Green Bay so Green Bay could, see what Jordan Love could do. So it's hard to say exactly where Jared Goff fits in based on not quite knowing who's going to be here for every other team in the division. And if we started with, at the beginning of next year, with the exact same starters that we have now, that we know of, talking Mitch in Chicago, Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, and Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. If I was to break it down, obviously Aaron Rodgers is head and shoulders better than any other quarterback in this division. Hands down, not even close. I mean, I think he gets some calls. I think he's smug. I think he's a crybaby. But let's face it. I mean, once again, guy's good. Can't stunt. He is. Now, Jared Goff, a lot of people are going to point to, I know there's points where Derek points at Kirk Cousins' stats, like, look what he's done the last few years. Look what he's done. But I still think Kirk Cousins is a completely average quarterback. He's just, I don't know. It seems like he's had some talent in Minnesota, and he does stuff with it, but then he's had some talent in Minnesota, and he hasn't done anything with it. When he was in Washington, he didn't have the greatest supporting cast, but he'd always put up kind of decent years with Washington. I just think he's an average quarterback. Do I think he's better than Jared Goff? I mean, if you're going to look at, people are comparing, was it Matt Stafford's numbers to Jared Goff's numbers and saying how similar there are. I mean, if that's the case, I'm going to say, well, no, because I always thought Stafford was better than Kirk Cousins. So, if you're going to compare Jared Goff and Matt Stafford, I'm going to say Jared Goff's better than Kirk Cousins. Now, people are going to be like, well, you can't do that just based on some stats or two different divisions. But if that's the case, I think everybody's going to agree that for that time, the NFC West had better defenses that Jared Goff faced than what Matt Stafford faced here in this division. I always thought Green Bay's defense was a little overrated, which, I still think Minnesota's or Green Bay's defense gets some calls. Based on them being Green Bay. The Monday night game 2 years ago, we were there, saw a couple of plays on defense that the Green Bay defense did. I still think there's other times where they're allowed to do a little more grabbing and stuff like that, where they get away with it. But, okay. The Smith boys on that defense, yeah, they're good for that defense, and I guess it fits their defense. But I think they're I think they're okay. I don't think they're great. If you disagree with me, feel free. Hit me up on Twitter at GriffKidDKC or call in on the line. But Green Bay's Green Bay. I think we all saw them later in the playoffs, how much their defense got exposed, about how completely average it was. And that's the case. Minnesota's defense really took a step back the last couple of years. They used to be the creme de la creme in this division. I really liked Minnesota's defense, all the players on there. So, but the last couple of years, like, Zimmer just hasn't had the defense that he has. And Chicago's defense really up and down. A couple years ago, really good. Last year, a little bit average. Not that great. But then the same could be said if you look at what Jared Goff took on out in the NFC West. Seattle's defense used to be the creme de la creme. Last couple of years, they haven't been that great. I still think they got that moniker. People think, they're great no matter what because they're Seattle, and everybody remembers the Legion of Boom out there and all the players they used to have, but go check the numbers. The last couple of years, they've been a little below average. San Francisco's defense, when Jared Goff first came out there, was only okay. But then Saleh really turned it around, and that defense has probably been the best defense that he's had to face out there the last few years. That's, once again, just my opinion. You could feel different. And I think Arizona's defense, they have a good defense. I mean, they got some, fast players. They're talented. They have a couple holes here and there, but mostly that defense flies around. And they're attacking all the time. They're always looking to put pressure on a quarterback, and everybody knows the best way to get a young quarterback, out of his game is to throw pressure at him, and that's what Arizona does. Those guys, they're flying around the field, but there's just some holes there where that the defense that they get exposed at points, and that's why Arizona's not out there, running away with the division. I mean, that their offense, at points is coming along too, but still, their defense has held a lot of times that Arizona team in games because of that defense. So to say like Matt Stafford and Jared Goff, you can't compare them because they're in two different divisions. I still think that kind of the talent levels they were facing were very similar. So to say that their numbers, to compare their numbers, to say apples to oranges, two different divisions, blah, 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 the talent, I would say it's apples to apples on that, based on what they're doing. So with that being said, am I going to put Jared Goff above Kirk Cousins? Of course I'm going to put, Jared Goff above Kirk Cousins. Everybody knows how I think about Kirk Cousins. It's almost how Derek feels about Ryan Tannehill. That he's terrible, that he sucks, he's not great. Even though Ryan Tannehill's thrown up, put the team in the on his back a couple times and put him in the playoffs, and it was like, well, it's Derrick Henry. Well, you're right, Derrick Henry's run, but still, you have to have a quarterback to be able to chuck the ball around, and that's what Ryan Tannehill does. So, I don't think Ryan Tannehill's that great, but if you're gonna throw the wins and losses, because that gets thrown at me sometimes. Well, look, he's got the wins. Okay, well, if that's the case, Jared Goff's got the win. Jared Goff's been to Super Bowl. I mean, yeah, he struggled in it against New England's defense, and I know I know the Los Angeles Rams had a great defense at that time, and even recently their defense has been pretty decent. It's been good. So he's just last year Goff. I mean, I think some of it was they kind of stopped doing what Goff I think kind of performs a little better at. I think you got to move him out of the pocket a little more. I don't think you can just put him back in there. The Rams' offensive line, it's been okay to decent. I would say it's very similar to Detroit's offensive line. Maybe Detroit's is a little better, younger, up and coming at this point. Where a couple years ago, probably I would have to say Los Angeles had a better offensive line for Jared Goff to run behind and play behind, as opposed to Matt Stafford. And even at this point, you could compare the running game, which obviously takes pressure off the quarterback to make a lot of plays if you have a running game. It seems like Los Angeles has always had a pretty decent running game with that too. So, and obviously Detroit's is up and coming. They got Swift, and they just need to find another back there to help him out. Carrion's back there, but nobody's putting a lot of stock in him. So, is Jared Goff better than Kirk Cousins? Of course. And then everybody knows that listens to the show knows how I feel about Mitch. I mean, it seems like that guy, they just don't want him around. But he shows up against the Lions, but I think that has more to do with Matt Patricia and his awesome scheme and whatever than him, Mitch being any good, because he pretty much blows against any other team. But Mitch, I don't care who they get. They can go get Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz, I still believe, can still be a decent quarterback, but he's not there. So I'm comparing Jared Goff against Mitch, and far and away, Jared Goff's better than Mitch. And people can say, oh, Mitch is coming along. He's making plays. He's doing that. But once again, he's another one of those quarterbacks where water finds its level. He is what he is. And, gosh, the Bears giving up what they did to trade up for that, to get that guy. Congratulations. That's just right there. You're getting a golf clap for that, because that's just one of the dumbest trades I've ever seen. So still, I mean, if we were going with the quarterbacks that are currently in this division without any trades, any moves being made, and Aaron Rodgers coming back to Green Bay, obviously I would put it, maybe this is just me drinking the blue Kool-Aid, but of course I'm taking Aaron Rodgers first, Jared Goff second, Kirk Cousins third, and then Mitch as the final as the final quarterback in this division. But I mean, it's early on. I mean, gosh, we're still a little bit away from the draft, so there's always all these moving parts, and even the four-letter networks calling this offseason the quarterback carousel. Everybody's just waiting for everything to fall, and the first one to move obviously was Stafford, and there's still all that big rumor that Houston can move on from Watson, even though Houston's like, we're not trading him at all. Well, everybody's tradable as long as you get the right deal for it. So they're obviously not, dumb. Houston's not that dumb to turn down something, but well, they've made bad trades in the past too. DeAndre Hopkins. I still think they're, wondering about that there in Houston. But we're just hoping Goff comes here and kind of balls out, kind of goes back to leading them to the playoffs, and it's gonna be tough. I mean, that's why they have to go get another wide receiver. Like you said, either they're going to franchise, like I mentioned before, they're going to franchise Kenny Golladay, or they're going to have to go sign a free agent and draft one, in the first couple rounds. But there's a little bit of a talent gap here, but I think Goff could be okay. I don't believe he's the guy like Matt Stafford that can make any wide receiver, throw up good stats with any wide receivers. I mean, yeah, we always talk about how we had Nate Burleson and Calvin Johnson, and we had Marvin Jones later and Kenny Golladay, but hey, we all remember those games where his number one wide receiver was Chris Durham. I mean, and everybody's gonna be like, who? Exactly, Chris Durham. So even though they were roommates in college and they were friends and you kind of knew him, but still, I mean, Chris Durham obviously wasn't a pro wide receiver. There's plenty of times where Matt Stafford has had nobody to throw the ball to. So Jared Goff, I don't think he's that guy that's making a whole lot of wide receivers better. I think he's a guy that needs talent around him for him to succeed. So the Lions can't come into next year with a really lackluster wide receiver core, hoping that DeAndre Swift can just carry the load, be like one of those old workhorse running backs. The last one I can really remember is Adrian Peterson. I mean, some people might say Zeke Elliott down in Dallas, but even Dalvin Cook up in Minnesota, but I don't think DeAndre Swift's as good as those guys at this point. So they need another running back there, and that offensive line, they need a right side. So Jared Goff, I mean, he's still probably the second best quarterback in this division, in my humble opinion. I mean, if you feel different, hit me up on Twitter. I'd be fine with that. Once again, I'm at GrifkaDKC. Or, you can find Derek at Derek Oakrey. He'd be more than happy to put his opinion in there as well. But there's still a lot of moving parts on this team. Still a little bit to go before we kind of know what this is going to be on the field. And like I mentioned on a previous episode, Dan Campbell said, trust in the process. But they're going to ride Jared Goff at least for the next couple years. I'm a firm believer in that. I don't see him taking a quarterback high, in this year's draft. Maybe next year, depending on what Jared Goff does this year. But as we mentioned, Brad Holmes likes him. Brad Holmes scouted him. He brought him here for a reason. He wasn't just a throw-in, as everybody says. So they're going to ride him this year, and they're going to look to build this team other places. So Jared Goff, be the second best quarterback in this division. We would love to see it. So it's been a pretty interesting offseason so far, and we still have a long way to go before any off-season workouts, any obviously training camps. But there's always news coming out of Detroit, it seems, this time of year, and we're pretty excited for the offseason. So well, that's all I got for today. I do appreciate you guys listening, and once again, it's Friday. Everybody stay warm, stay safe. Hopefully, if you had the chance to get the vaccine, congratulations. I know still a lot of people are waiting for it. But I appreciate you all listening. So everybody, have a good weekend. And as always, drink it in, man. Welcome to the Detroit Koolaid, everybody. It's Friday, and this is Griff coming at you again. As you heard from Wednesday's show, Derek had another guest spot. It's a very entertaining show. Good listen. Bears fan, which I'm okay with that. It's nice to have a little banter back and forth between the two. And I know on the last few shows, Derek keeps kind of mentioning that he's just taking a break from me. He's kind of, as a quote-unquote, kind of kicked me off the show for a time, but, that's okay. What you don't realize is, doing a podcast with Derek, to me, is kind of like dealing with my ex-wife, where chatting with her, figuring stuff out, her opinion's always the right one, yours is always kind of wrong, and doesn't see your opinion, and if you are wrong ultimately, the admission of being wrong is generally really quick and then poo-pooed aside and never mentioned again. But that's fine. I mean, it's not bad talking to you guys, doing my own show every now and again. So I hope you enjoy listening to me. But it is Friday, so as always, you always get my weather report. This weekend, it's actually supposed to be mid to upper 40s here in mid-Michigan. It's almost like it's pretty much spring weather outside, which means I'm going to be busting out my shorts, getting my flip-flops, be looking to head to the beach here at some point. But geez, compared to the negative degrees that we were in just seems like, 10 days ago with all the snow. So, not being that bad outside, I say go outside, uncover that grill again. If you do cover it up for the winter, maybe you can cook up some steaks, even just want some burgers or hot dogs, just to get that, spring, summer feeling going again. But as always, TGIF, thank God it's Friday. First thing I want to start off with today was saw an article earlier this week about Matt Campbell's, I guess his take about how he feels about the way people think he's going to be the coach or what people are calling him. I guess some reporters and some talking heads are, receptive to him and like him. They think they like his energy. As Derek mentions, it's bringing a new style to Detroit, something Detroit hasn't had in a while, fiery presence, and some people like that. And then there's other ones out there that I guess the terminology I read and ended up reading was meathead. They just think he's a meathead. And first of all, I don't know what gives you that impression. Yeah, he's a former football player, and he has a very strong personality. You can tell just by his introductory press conference. But that doesn't mean the guy doesn't know football. And I really like the way he's coming back at it and saying, well, yeah, I guess you could call us that, but, they're football minds. Him and Chris Spielman, even you brought Chris Spielman into it as well. And I think they're, Chris Spielman, just by listening to him call games, he knows the game very well, and it seems when he is being the color man on a football game, he's able to point out, things that, guys aren't doing correctly, what they need to do, kind of calling out, what teams should be doing to improve, to stop, more so than just some color guys that, I know Derek really liked Aqib Talib when he was doing that, but, yeah, he was like entertaining, but like entertaining almost in a ha-ha thing, where Chris Spielman's actually kind of giving you something like, this is what, the team needs to do to stop this or something like that. So he knows the game, and so does the head coach. So I almost like that, the way he just kind of brushed it under the rug. It's almost to the effect that it's like he's saying, go ahead, underestimate us. Take us, as the same old Lions. Take us, that you're going to be beating us down for the next however many years. I'm here doing what I'm doing, putting my team together and my staff. I like that. Kind of fly under the radar. Well, they're not going to be a good team. Look at their head coach. He's just a meathead. And with that being said, and I saw a power poll already, and the Lions were ranked dead last in said power poll. So I know there's once again, a lot of pundits out there just not giving them credit, and I'm even willing to admit, at this point right now, I don't think the Lions are going to be very good next year. I think they're going to play a lot harder, and I think this coach and the staff that he's bringing in of former players and some wise sages that have been in the league for a little bit, I think it's going to be a better team. I don't know if they're going to be sniffing the playoffs or they're going to be another 5-6 win team, but I think they're definitely going to play harder. So many times last year it looks like that team gave up until they got rid of Matt Patricia. Then they played harder for Darrell Bevell. But I think that's what Campbell brings. He's just going to be he's going to be a more fiery coach. And the team is definitely going to play harder for him. So when pundits are out there just, saying that, oh, he's just a meathead, a football meathead, it kind of harkens back to, I don't know, being a child of the 80s. You see in like those 80s movies and even some into the 90s, like the jocks have like, they're just in the movies they can't, rub two words together to put a sentence together. And I don't think this is going to be this way. They're smart. It's almost calling him mean, and just almost kind of like using that stereotype that, he's just out there and just play football, play football. And that's not what it's going to be. Yeah, what he said, like I said, Kenny Galladay, laughed out loud, when he said, bite a kneecap off, take 2 punches, get back up, or take your other knee, or they're going to be taking hunks out of you. I mean, it's fiery. And maybe a lot of Lions fans just aren't used to seeing that. We're used to the mild-mannered and kind of laid back. And who was the last fiery coach that we had here? I mean, Bobby Ross was fiery. I don't think he was as fiery, but by the time he was here, he was just kind of older and maybe mellowed out a little bit, but he was definitely a fiery coach. I mean, Wayne Font seemed a little fiery. That guy always had a nice sound bite. And, I mean, I loved, who didn't love Coach Wayno? Who didn't love the big buck? Benny Blades talks about how he loved him. And when you listen to the Believe in Lions podcast with him and Derek, I mean, he loved Wayne Font. I mean, how was he not a good coach? But that's one of those things where those guys, Wayne Fonts was able to get the team motivated. I think when Bobby Ross came in, they didn't like his. I would call him fiery, but he was more like along the lines of Matt Patricia, more stern, more disciplined. And I don't think the team took to that well. So he just wasn't good with what the team had at the time. But I think that's what Campbell is here for. He's to kind of get him out of that malaise of, the coach, I don't want to say, very stern, very regimented. I don't think the Lions are just going to be undisciplined and run wild like when Jim Schwartz was here, which, by the way, was a very fiery coach as well. Got him to the playoffs, took over a 0-win team. But I think with coaching hires now with the Lions, I just think a lot of people are just out there thinking it doesn't matter who they hire. It's going to be the same old Lions. It's going to be the same old Lions. It's going to be the same old Lions. Where Sheila Ford Hamp is getting a lot of praise for wanting to turn this organization around. I'm not saying that, Miss Ford wasn't looking to do that. I don't think they just knew how to do it. It's putting the right people in the right positions. And if people want to go out there, pundits want to go out there and call our new head coach a meathead, feel free, because all you're doing is underestimating the guy. And with that, you're just giving the Lions, you're giving that coaching staff, and even to a point you're going to give the players a little bit more motivation. If they like the coach, if they're going to run through a wall for him, calling him a meathead, that's just going to want to make them play for him harder. And I realize they're professionals. They should be motivated to play already. It's not all rah-rah like it is in college and high school. I mean, this is their job. This is what they're paid to do. I mean, so with them having to get, a fiery speech or something like that from the coach, he's been there before. I think he knows what to say, what to do to get a team motivated to go play a big game and to go get motivated on maybe those dog games where if you're a good team and you think you can go into a stadium, put your helmet on and win, which we've heard in the past with other Lions teams do, like, oh, we thought we'd go in there and just win, and they end up losing, which has happened. Those quotes have come out before. Then I think he's almost the right coach to do that. And they're even putting the staff together to do that. All the former players, they know what it takes to win in this league. So go ahead, pundits, call the head coach, call all the coach, call the front office, call them all meatheads. That's fine. Just write them off. Because I'm going to tell you, maybe next year, this year coming up, with the devoid of talent that was on this team, it's going to take a little bit to get them back up and going. In a couple years, this team's going to be knocking teams out. And they're going to be a very dangerous team. So, and that's what I'm really looking forward to as a Lions fan. And I know that's what a lot of other Lions fans are looking forward to as well. For this team to turn it around and get going and be the scary team walking into stadiums. That's what they're looking for. And that's what I'm looking for too. So, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to trust the process, like you said. But, hey, you only got so much time to get this turned around before Lions fans are going to start calling for your head as well. So, next thing I wanted to mention was the wide receivers, and that's big. What we have coming in, or what the lack we have. I mean, there's once again the talk of putting Kenny, the franchise tag on Kenny Galladay, because obviously Jared Goff needs to throw the ball to somebody, and the only other real wide receiver on the team right now is Quintez Cephas. And I hope the recent filing against the University of Wisconsin, for, feeling that he was a scapegoat in the situation. If you don't know what I'm talking about, feel free to go look it up. But I do remember when that happened to him at the University of Wisconsin. I always thought he was a decent wide receiver there. Just obviously my lazy boy scouting, as Derek puts it, that I always thought he was a decent to good wide receiver for the University of Wisconsin. And I like the University of Wisconsin. I do. They're one of my favorite teams in the Big Ten. So besides Michigan, obviously, is the number one. But I like the University of Wisconsin. I watch a lot of their football games as well. So I hope this doesn't interfere. The Cephas Court case doesn't interfere with him trying to improve as a player on the field. I don't know. I don't want to say it's going to motivate him. He's looking for something. I don't know all the details of it, and I don't know what's in his mind, and that's fine. I just hope it doesn't affect his progression of becoming a wide receiver in this league, because the Lions are going to need him. I mean, there's plenty of other guys out there, obviously cap casualties, people that, teams are going to get released, things like that. I believe Las Vegas just released Williams, a wide receiver. He was injured most of last year, so he's out there. So there's a lot of guys they can pick from. One guy that Derek brought up on a podcast recently on one of his own shows was Odell Beckham's out there. Come on, Odell Beckham's not coming here. Don't even pine for it. He's not coming here. Simply because he's not going to want to go to a team they're not going to admit, the Lions aren't going to admit they're in a full rebuild. They want to be competitive, but let's admit it as Lions fans here. Come on. They're going to rebuild. They got to. And Odell, or overrated Beckham as I like to call him, he ain't coming here. He's not. And I'm more than happy with that he's not coming here. I think he would just be a malcontent. I think he's your typical player wide receiver. He wants his, that he always does. Derek pokes at me because I always compare current players to like former Lions. I'm like, can this guy be this guy? Can this guy be this guy? Once again, I'm gonna take that one on the chin about calling Jelani Tavai a poor man's Chris Spielman. Sorry, Chris Spielman. I do apologize for that. I really do. But I often do that. But Derek tends to bring in guys where they're former players, former NBA players. I mean, I remember he's compared guys to like Rasheed Wallace, and I think he's compared guys to maybe once or twice, like maybe Chauncey Billups or something like that. I'm going to compare Odell Beckham to nobody ever on the Pistons, simply because, I mean, I don't even follow basketball. I do remember the Bad Boys, and I liked watching the Bad Boys then. I do remember when the Pistons won their NBA championship against the Lakers, where it just seemed the Lakers were supposed to come in here and, wrap them up because they had all those superstars. They had, Kobe and Shaq, Karl Malone, and I think the number 5 was like a lab or black lab or something, like Labrador Retriever. So it doesn't matter. Where the Pistons then were not star driven. So Odell Beckham compared to anybody in basketball, I'm going to compare him to Carmelo Anthony. These guys that they have to get theirs. Let's face it. What is Carmelo Anthony won in college at Syracuse. Odell Beckham, won at LSU. It was, on good teams down there. Got in the pros. They don't make anybody better. They're always looking to get the ball themselves. They're always looking to put their own stats up. I mean, they're going to say kind of like the right stuff in the media, how they're going to want to get, I'm here for the team, help the team, blah, blah, blah. But really, do they? Do they ever make them, do they? No. And Carmelo Anthony late is just like, well, yeah, I'd be happy to go play with this team now. I'd be happy to go back to Portland. Of course you would, because you're old and washed up and nobody really wants you and you still want to be sort of a ball hog. You still want to get the ball and still want to shoot because people think, oh, Carmelo Anthony's great. Look how many points he scores. Big deal. He doesn't make teams better. He actually kind of makes them a little worse. And that's what I think of Odell Beckham. He still has to get his. And I remember watching Colin Cowherd where he was talking about how Baker Mayfield, which, by the way, everybody knows how I feel about Baker Mayfield. I don't think he's that great either. How he would be better if Baker Mayfield would be better if Odell Beckham wasn't on the team. Well, what happened? Odell Beckham got hurt. He wasn't on the team. Baker Mayfield played better. Baker Mayfield is a quarterback that needs a lot of talent around him to be good, or at least somewhat good. Because we all remember the Jets game last year where, they were missing all these wide receivers. He still threw for 110 yards against the Jets. Okay, the Jets blew. And he couldn't, he didn't have any wide receivers. Who cares? If you're any good, you're going to make anybody good. And that's not Baker Mayfield, let's face it. But he didn't have Odell Beckham, and that's fine. Derek put some tweet out on Twitter about this. He tagged me and it kind of busted my balls about it. About Odell Beckham's first 80 games, which he's what has 6,800 yards and 50 touchdowns, and he was like, "Oh, don't forget about me." That was or something like that. Yeah, that is the typical "don't forget about me" tweet right there. It's like, "Hey, I'm still here. I'm good." Yeah, really? And so I kind of looked it up, and I'm like, okay, let's compare him to let's say Calvin Johnson, because Derek always says he holds no ill will to Calvin Johnson, but he calls him a quitter. He left the team, blah blah blah. Yeah, we've heard the story. So I kind of looked it up. Okay, first of all, Odell, your tweet is pretty much your career. That's what you've done. You've played 81 games, 82 games. So that's your career. Okay? So you've been around 7 seasons, and you've played 80 games. Yeah. How about you get on the field first before shooting your mouth off? Okay? Yeah, let's break that down first. Because I throw that at Derek. And Derek's like, he uses stats to back his points. I use stats to kind of manipulate stuff. And I say that before. It's like, yeah, that's all stats is. Take a stats class. You're just grabbing what you want to make your numbers look good. So I looked that up as well. So Odell, I always throw it at him that Odell Beckham, in 7 years, has played a full season of 16 games twice. So it's like, okay, you've been on the field for every game 16 times, twice. And I was like, oh, it doesn't matter. And people are like, okay, so you look into a little more. So he's been in 15 games once, 12 games twice, then 7 and 4. 7 games and 4 games. So that means, here I'm going to twist the number here a little bit, because once again, there's only 16 games. He's missed a quarter of the season out of his 7 years 4 times. So let's compare that to Calvin Johnson, because I use that all the time. So I can do the same thing here. Calvin Johnson played 9 years. He only played in all 16 games 4 times. So it's less than half his career. It's like, oh gosh, look at that. How can you're comparing Bustin' on Odell? You're right. The least amount of games he played in a season was 13, and he did that once. Every other year he played 14 or 15 games. So Calvin Johnson was at least on the field. So I didn't get the exact stats of 80 games. So I just pulled. I went up through his seasons. I went up to 82 games. Okay, that's what I did. So I'm fudging. I'm twisting the numbers a tiny bit here between Calvin Johnson and Odell. Once again, Derek's tweet to me on Odell Beckham was, in his first 80 games, he had 6,800 yards and 50 touchdowns. Who else has done that? Nobody. Mic drop. I'm the man. I'm Odell. Remember me. I'm great. No, you're not. You're Carmelo Anthony. Get out of here. So here's Calvin Johnson. I went 82 games. In 82 games, Calvin Johnson had 54 touchdowns and a little over 7,800 yards. Okay? So in 2 more games, he had 4 more touchdowns. In 2 more games, he had over 1,000 yards more. So Odell, Mr. Awesome, which Derek still thinks he can be a number 1, which I decree if it was any other wide receiver, because Derek likes him, if it was any other wide receiver, he would bag on the guy. But he likes Odell. He gives good sound bites. He likes his swag. Okay. He averaged 85 yards per game, is what Odell averaged. Where in those games, Calvin Johnson averaged 95 yards a game. So yeah, give me Calvin Johnson over Odell Beckham any day of the week. Give me the guy who doesn't talk. He lets his numbers walk for him, do the talking and walking for him, over a guy who's going to send out tweets shouting, hey, don't forget about me. I'm still great. So yeah. So if Lions fans want Odell as a wide receiver, first of all, I wholeheartedly disagree with you. He's not going to help the team at all. If he does end up coming here, it would be like 4 or 5 years from now, where he's still looking for a paycheck, and the Lions might want a name. But I wouldn't even want him at that point. That team's going to be way past that by now. They're getting this team turned around. They're going in the right direction. They're going to be sniffing Super Bowls and winning Super Bowls by that point. They're not going to want Odell Beckham. So Odell, go find another team. Go try to be a good teammate somewhere else and just get injured. Because that's all you are. You're overrated, injured all the time. The Lions don't need you. I would rather go draft young guys. I'd rather go draft Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase, who Derek likes, Devontae Smith. I'd rather go get anybody than have Odell Beckham on that field. I mean, I'd rather go, like Derek put it, he'd rather have young, hungry guys with something to prove. I would take those guys over Odell Beckham Jr. any day of the week. Because those guys are at least going to freaking try. So that's what the Lions need for wide receivers for Jared Goff. They don't need Odell Beckham, who's going to be in the huddle saying, throw me the ball. I'm open all the time. I'm a 7-Eleven, open all the time. Sorry, Odell. I just ran some basic numbers. And like I said, it's just stats. I can manipulate numbers just like everybody else. It's fine. But the Lions don't need you. They really freaking don't. So, with that being said, I'm going to take a break here. You're going to hear a shout-out. I mentioned before, Benny Blades. Every Thursday morning, you get the Believe in Lions podcast with Derek and Benny Blades. It is a good show to listen to. Benny's got some good stories. They have the banter back and forth. Give it a listen, and I'll be right back after the break. Hi, this is Griff again, coming at you here on a Friday. It's been kind of, sorry about the rant about Odell. Everybody knows how I feel about Odell. But I apologize for that. And it leads me to my next thing, I guess, is when I was talking about that, I used the word great. And it got me thinking, really, at one point, when I was kind of pondering this before, what is greatness? Who deems greatness? You know, for the Lions, Derek kind of bust on me for that, saying, are they Lions good or are they NFL good? And he makes fun of me for that, which is fine. And I get it, because I think there's times where you're a fan. You think guys are better than what they actually are. And I think it kind of goes the same line as greatness. Everybody agrees who's great. Tom Brady's great. Peyton Manning's great. You know, we all know that. You know, wide receivers, why? You know, Jerry Rice, you know, Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, Walter. We all know that. But I think there's some times it makes you kind of step back and wonder, what's great? How do you rate it? I mean, when I was a kid, Dan Marino's my favorite quarterback. And I think Dan Marino's great. But somebody will throw at me, well, he's never won a Super Bowl. Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, but he did go to one. He lost it to Joe Montana, who, by the way, is great. But does that mean he's not great? I mean, if we were Lions fans, would we not take Dan Marino in the 80s? Are you kidding me? Compared to Eric Hipple and Rusty Hilger and Joe Ferguson? I mean, of course you're going to want to trot Dan Marino out there. He never won a Super Bowl, but you're going to take it. He was great. Now, it's another thing. Matt Stafford. I know it's like everybody's got the pad stats, and is he great? Is he a Hall of Famer? Do you consider it a Hall of Fame? Does that show your greatness? Because there's some people who say, oh, you made the Hall of Fame, oh, it's a popularity. Sometimes it becomes a popularity contest if you were nice to the media. You know, if they like you that way, they're going to vote you in. So I guess ultimately, I mean, if you're in the Hall of Fame, you got to be deemed great, right? That's the creme de la creme, the best of the best. But I still hear people debate it. It's like, oh, they're not great. Matt Stafford never won, has a losing record against winning teams, never won a playoff game. But he's got a crap ton of stats. Is he great? That might be the point where it comes to, he's Lions great. He's a great Lions player. And yes, he went to the Rams, and the Rams think they got a definite, upgrade. And it's funny how after he got traded, all of a sudden ESPN just couldn't stop gushing about him. It's like when he was on Detroit, he was almost like missing. It's like, oh, Matt Stafford's here, okay, but he's in Detroit. We don't care about him. And then he gets traded, and like NFL Network, 4-letter network, all you hear about how great Matt Stafford is. But us here as Lions, the fans, there were somewhat ready to run him out of town. But guys like me, I think he's great. I mean, is he Hall of Fame great? I guess you could debate that. But he's definitely Lions great. And people will yell at me for that. Well, that doesn't make any sense. That's funny. You're downplaying it. Well, it's because I'm a fan of the team. I mean, I'm not comparing him to like that. I'm going to compare him to like other guys that were on the Lions. Like I said, he was the last great quarterback since who? Greg Landry? I think that was the last good Lions quarterback. Greg Landry. And people say, well, Eric Kramer's good. Yeah, but Eric Kramer's like one or two, like a little splash. He was a decent quarterback. He wasn't great. I mean, it brings you to, there's so many guys that you could say. And I love Benny Blades. I think Benny Blades is great. But I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Benny Blades. So my eyes might be colored a little different. Might have that little bit of, Honolulu blue glasses on, where I think Benny Blades is great. Where other people are going to be like, are you crazy? He's not Ronnie Lott. Yeah, I know he's not Ronnie Lott. But he's still great. he's Lions great. That's to me, though. Chris Spielman, another one. Love Chris Spielman. Huge fan of Chris Spielman. Favorite middle linebacker when I was a kid. It's funny, like, when me and Derek go back and forth, I always bring up guys like, Mike Singletary or somebody like that. Dick Butkus. I never bring up Chris Spielman, but I love Chris Spielman. Do I think he's great? Yeah, I think Chris Spielman's great. I do. But that's just my opinion. And I'm entitled to it, no matter how I came to it. Is he NFL great? Is he Hall of Fame worthy? I would probably say no. But in my eyes, he is great. So when other people come to me, if Derek thinks Odell Beckham's great, Hall of Famer, so be it. But I can throw you numbers back and say, no, we just differ in opinion. I say it all the time, reasonable minds can differ. And which is fine. If guys aren't that great, if they're not that great, I think they're not that. Kirk Cousins not that great. But Derek will tell you, well, look at the stats he threw up. Would you rather have Kirk Cousins or Matt Stafford? Tell me which one you'd rather have. If you were not a Lions fan and you were on the outside looking in, who would you rather want? Do you think the Rams were like, hey, Matt Stafford's available, but I hear Kirk Cousins is available also? Who do you think they're going to try to get first? I heard Kirk Cousins has been on the table. San Francisco was interested. I mean, maybe other teams are calling. It's not getting nearly as much pub because people are going to take Matt Stafford over Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins got a winning record. He's got all these stats, though, and he's got all these touchdowns. Kirk Cousins, I'm sure he's a nice guy. From Holland, Michigan. I'm sure he's a nice guy. Really. But he ain't that great at quarterback. He's not that great. See, I think greatness is just a very trite word, and it's thrown out a lot. Where it's like, oh, he's great. Really? But what's your measure of great? Like I said, is it a Hall of Fame? Or do you look at it with a certain level of, you're a fan of a certain team. So, you think he's great or not? There's plenty of people. Joe Namath's in the Hall of Fame. I love Joe Namath. I've never seen the guy take it down on live ever. All I've ever seen is film of this guy. I've seen film of him in the Jets uniform. I've seen film of him, in an Alabama uniform. I think he's great. Talk about a guy with swagger. Talk about a guy with style, panache. That was Joe Namath. Guy guarantees a Super Bowl victory and backs it up. That's swagger. That's greatness. Yeah, at first his team didn't like him. Go watch some stuff, read some stuff. His teammates didn't like him. They said, give him the captaincy, and maybe he'll take it a little more seriously. So they did, and Joe Namath did. Yeah, that guy's great. But I know plenty of people, I've been in plenty of arguments with people that say, he's not even a Hall of Famer. Look at his stats. Look at his stats. More interceptions than touchdowns. And it's just one of those things where, but that's it. I'm looking at it with glasses because I have a fan's eye. And that's just, you want the Lions to get great players. And Derek pokes at me and says, you know what? Just because they're not Hall of Famers, all pros, you think they're not that great and they stink. No. I'm just wise to realize that, we need better players on this team than just Detroit great. We need better players than that. We can have guys that are nice in the community, and I'm fine with that. We can have guys that are, good to fans, and I'm fine with that. But the Detroit Lions, to go to the playoffs, make deep runs, and win Super Bowls, they need better players than Detroit great players. And it happens in all sports. It happens with all teams, all fans. I mean, some teams, they're just racked with great players. Tom Brady's a great player. Obviously, he went to the Super Bowl with Tampa Bay and went and won it. People can debate, hey, maybe Tampa Bay got some calls and helped him out. But still, he took Tampa Bay. Was Tampa Bay going anywhere with Jameis Winston? Was Jameis Winston even Tampa Bay great? Derek still thinks he's going to be a decent quarterback. I think he sucks. Okay? Talk about an overrated quarterback. But he likes him. He likes style, and maybe he gives good, quotes or whatever. He wasn't even Tampa Bay great. Tom Brady goes down there and wins Super Bowl. The Lions need better players than just Detroit great players. And if everybody's like, no, they just need dogs. They just need hard-working players. They need this. I hate to break it to you. The NFL is an entertainment business. They want teams out there on Monday night, on Sunday night, teams with name players. They want if you're a crap. How do the Giants get a Monday night, 2 Monday night games every year? How do the Dallas Cowboys? Why? Because they are big market teams. Teams love to watch those guys, and they got big fan bases. So for Detroit to do that, they need great players. If you want to see them on those games, I know I checked the schedule for their primetime games, and every Lions fan out there is just as disappointed as I am when they only get their Thanksgiving Day game. Every other game Sunday at 1 o'clock. Unless they're on the West Coast one time, then they play at 4 o'clock, which sucks. Those 4 o'clock starts, I hate them. So they need great players. They need better players than Detroit great. Like I said, Matt Stafford threw up a bunch of stats, but he was Detroit great. Half the fans were ready to run that guy out on a rail. Other ones, me and Derek backed him. So they need great players, either doing it through the draft. They're not getting. Chris Spielman kind of hinted they weren't going out looking this year to make big free agent spending, big splashes. Year or two, they're going to start building this team through the draft. They got to get rid of some of the dead weight that the old regime, Matt Pat and Bob Quinn left here. But they know talent. They're going to start bringing in some great players, and they're going to bring in guys that are better than Detroit great. Why? Because those guys on that team have been in the league in a while, and they know greatness. I'm going to say that right now. They know greatness. And sometimes greatness is just a matter of being able to go out on top. When you know you're there, you're able to walk off into the sunset after a win. It's like you realize I had a great career. I know who I am. I'm set. I'm okay. I want to be able to get up on Monday and walk around. Not need 5 knee replacements. Stuff like that. Sometimes greatness is just knowing that. And that's what it is. And that's why it's just, great to be a fan. Because we're not the ones out there putting our lives on the line. And we can rip guys like Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson for quitting on their teams. They quit. But you've left jobs. And I'm guaranteeing people have, me and you have left jobs. And nobody's ever called us quitters. They just got tired of doing it because the money wasn't worth it to them anymore. But we have fans' eyes. So that's what the difference is. So, as always, kind of going out on top is the big thing. So, that's what everybody wants. And when people go out on top, people say, oh, they're great. Look how great he is. So, well, that's all I got for today. And speaking of going out on top, I just want to say to everybody that this is going to be my last regular show. I appreciate you guys all listening and letting me come into your minds and listen, giving you my opinion. Because that's all it is. It's my opinion. You have your opinion. I've debated with some people on Twitter. But, I think it's just the end of my run. So, I'm sure Derek's still going to bring you the Detroit Koolaid, bring you the content that you're looking for. He's still going to be doing his all of his scouting, bringing you guys, all the information. That's fine. I'm sure, he'll have it all broken down, and he'll know everything about every guy out there, ready for the draft, him being the GM and all. So, once again, I do appreciate your time. And as always, drink it in, man.